this movie could have been awful. It could have been absolute garbage on every level. If one bit didn't work, I think the whole movie falls apart. But yeah, it's just perfectly stacked. Today we're doing one of the dumbest yet brilliant movies of all time, Team America World Police. After Iain tells us the unforgettable story of him bringing this movie into school, we'll dig into how Team America achieves its hilarity by combining surface level stupidity with deeper meaning. We'll go through favorite scenes, best quotes, rank all the amazing songs, and then discuss the painstaking effort it took to actually make this movie, from the puppets' animatronic heads to the giant sets they built and actually blew up. But for now, sit back, relax, and welcome to my film club. So Iain, there are thousands of movies out there, and yet when we talked about doing one together on this podcast, there wasn't much hesitation. Why are we doing Team America World Police today?
So for me, it's genius. I think it's absolutely hilarious. The music in it and the songs are just unrivaled, I think. Apart from maybe South Park the movie. And it's, from I first saw it when I was 14, so probably peak time to see a film like that. And there's a massive nostalgia piece, but I've seen it countless times. I just adore it from start to finish.
If you had to estimate how many times you've seen it, what would you?
I'd probably say I've seen it probably between 50 and 60 times.
Nice.
As a film. Yeah. I mean, it came out,
2005,
I think, 2004, 2005 it came out, so I've had a lot of time to see it. But 90% of those were within the first year. It came out.
Did you see it in the cinema?
I did.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
I did. So I went with two friends, and actually probably one of the reasons I picked this film, so it was always between this film and Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And I think both of those were because of the experience I had in the cinema of watching it. Watching this film in the cinema, I've never experienced anything like it. Like, I must have snuck in to see it. It was a 15. I was 14 at the time, so there's probably a bit of jeopardy about am I going to be able to make it in. I remember I went with two friends, Ashley and Lee, and the entire cinema was just laughing, like from start to finish, from the opening scene of the terrorists being
a great start.
Be it being in Paris and to the close, just the cinema was just absolutely just in stitches. And I think from seeing a film, it's probably the best cinema experience that I've had, apart from seeing The Two Towers, again, at a similar age, for very different reasons. But seeing this film in the cinema was one of the funniest hours and a half of my life. It was
quite a statement.
It was just absolutely genius. Yeah.
It's funny, I found doing this podcast, and even looking back myself, that the first time you see a movie, most importantly being the cinema, who you're with, has such an impact on, as you say, the 50th, 60th time. Yeah. And for me, Inglourious Basterds is one of my favorite movies, and I remember screening that with my brother and my dad in the cinema. I can still picture coming out of it and having a conversation afterwards and just being like, that was amazing.
Yeah, and definitely. And I think, from seeing it kind of at the time, when I was a teenager, I probably at the time, obviously I liked it because it was so stupid. It's so rude. You're seeing the things that puppets are doing that you have no right to be doing. Spoiler free, but it's outrageous at times. And I think at that age, it's like, oh my God, I shouldn't be watching this, And then I'm watching it back now as someone in my mid-30s with a baby and a wife, just the pure nostalgia of it. It takes me back to that moment when I'm in the cinema. And I just loved it. Honestly, loved it and still love it now.
I mean, the thing I love about movies like this is that you can love them as a kid. And then honestly, so I haven't seen it as many times as you, but I've probably seen it 20 or 30 times. Didn't see it in the cinema. I think I got into South Park a bit late. So maybe I was 15, 16. And actually, funny story, initially I was super judgmental of people who like South Park. I remember a friend having a pencil case, which was like, oh my God, they killed Kenny. Yeah. And my parents had said, oh, South Park is trash. Yeah. You just believe your parents at a certain age. And then I watched the first episode I ever watched was the Return of the Two Towers, the VHS one with the Return of the Two Towers to the Fellowship or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, this is brilliant. It's so, because when you discover drugs or alcohol that your parents have told you shouldn't do, and you're like, why would they tell me? This is really fun.
It's so much fun.
And then I must have explored it and be like, oh my God, they made this movie. And it's just the first time, as we'll talk about later, your wife's experience watching, the first time you watched this, you're like, what the fuck is this shit? It's so weird.
And I think that's it. I think there's going to be some people who watch this film and think it's garbage.
Because it kind of looks like garbage at first.
And that was, so when I rewatched this, as part of this, the preparation for today, and I watched it with my wife, who's, absolutely not a fan of South Park. And she was like, this is terrible. How are you going to talk about this film so long? It's so stupid. But one of the things she didn't like about it was how kind of amateur it looked.
Crude, yeah.
Yeah, crude, exactly. Like, they're puppets. They look absolutely nowhere near realistic. Like the scenes are, you can see the strings, but that is, to me, that is all part of it. It's, it's meant to look crap. It's meant to look low budget. But actually, kind of when you break it down, I always think the same with South Park. I think South Park, when you think about it, for those who haven't really kind of seen it too much, it's just a bunch of kids swearing at one another. It is so clever and it is so funny, and it is like some of the best writing I've ever seen has come out of South Park, The Book of Mormon, Team America, obviously all done by the same guys. And it's just, and I think Team America is one of them. I think if you watch it and you're kind of on your phone and you're not really paying attention, you could get away with thinking, well, that was just a complete waste of an hour and a half. But, when you start to understand, some of almost like the underlying issues and, kind of where the world was in 2005 and all that sort of stuff, it's so clever and it's so funny.
And I think that's the true quality, is this is funny on the surface, but when you study it for podcasts like this, and you like, there's so much stuff I'm going to tell you about that's going to blow your mind. It's going to make you appreciate it if you can believe it even more, about how hard it was to make this movie. And that, I think that's what I love about movies like that. Something that hooks you when you're a kid, just for one reason. I always call that the hook. What's the hook of this movie? I say, with The Mask of Zorro, it's Catherine Zeta-Jones is beautiful. With Iron Man, it might be, Iron Man is cool. With this, it's funny and it's scandalous. But then when you go beyond that, it's just so much more interesting, whether it is the geopolitics, whether it is the history of all the technical people that were involved, or where we were at in history and all that. So now that takes us to kind of the background of this. So do you know where the basic idea of the puppets, like what it was based on?
No idea, actually.
So do you remember a TV show called Thunderbird?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Have you ever actually watched it, or are you just aware of it?
No, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
So that's more than me. I watched 1 minute. It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's absolutely awful. So for those of you that don't know, it's a 1960s British TV show that uses this exact style of puppets doing action stuff, let's call it.
Yeah.
And it's not great. It has aged far worse than this has. This actually looks amazing compared to that. I watched 1 minute and was blown away about how the mouths don't work. It's like really long dialogue bits. There's actually very little action, which we'll talk about why later. Obviously, we mentioned it. This is made by the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who seemingly love to just get high and drunk and watch stuff and then be like, hey, let's spend the next 5 years of our lives doing this or that.
Yeah.
And so they watched the Thunderbirds. It's funny because the interviews, they say they found it silly and they found it slow, and they understood why it was never successful, because kids don't have that much attention span. They were like, we were grown adults and we struggled to listen to them talk for like 1 minute about plot and stuff like that. But it seems like they liked it enough that they wanted to pay homage to it. So they started looking into the rights of Thunderbirds, because this is in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Thunderbirds was made in the 60s. They found out that there was going to be a movie made of it. So they asked, who's making it? And it was some guy who'd made a bunch of Star Trek movies. And they're like, oh, wow, that guy's going to do puppets? And it's like, oh, no, they're doing it live action. And they thought, what? Thunderbirds can't be live action. And so the movie came out, I think a year after this, actually, the Thunderbirds live action. It's complete garbage. I just watched the trailer. It looks terrible. It was received terribly. The point of the Thunderbirds was never the plot or anything. It was the visual. So they decided, well, fuck that. We're going to make our own Thunderbirds homage. Initially, their idea was to make fun of silly action movies from the 90s and 2000s. And apparently, initially, they literally wanted to just take a Jerry Bruckheimer movie and do it verbatim, like exactly the same thing, shot for shot, sentence for sentence.
Oh, I heard this. Yeah.
But then they found out legally they weren't allowed to do that. So then the idea evolved, and we'll talk more about the story in the script and stuff. They described it as a send-up, which I guess is the opposite of a send-off, because a send-off is honoring something, whereas a send-up is making fun of it. So Jerry Bruckheimer movies, for those of you that don't know Jerry Bruckheimer, he's made some real bangers and then some trash, but that some people enjoy. So The Rock, Con Air, I think those are both amazing movies. Armageddon, less good, but I think that came out at an age where we watched that and we thought it was awesome at that age.
I've got good memories of Armageddon.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in years, but I'm sure that it's not good. But I just think movies like for us, and I think a lot of people who are 10 or 20 years old than us, they have movies like that came out in the 70s or 80s that are not objectively good, but they watched them when they were kids, so they like them. So Armageddon falls in that. Pearl Harbor.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
Pearl Harbor probably falls into that. We'll talk about that later in the music section. Black Hawk Down. He also made when I say made, he produced a lot of these movies, but Top Gun as well.
Yeah.
Some real bangers, but also even stuff like the original Top Gun, like absolutely cliche ridden.
Yes.
And they wanted to make fun of that. It was championed by this producer called Scott Rudin, who's made some amazing movies like No Country for Old Men, The Social Network, Zoolander, eight Wes Anderson movies, The Truman Show. So a real mix between prestige movies and high quality comedies. He also produced the South Park movie, which, here's a crazy thing. The South Park movie only came out 2 years after the TV show started. Like, I always assumed they must have had a much longer run. This came out 5 years after the South Park movie, which was very successful.
Yeah.
Oscar nomination, and 7 years after South Park started. So we're still talking relatively early in their tenure, because now South Park's been around for close to 30 years.
Yeah.
It took roughly 5 years to make this. From 2 years of writing the script, pre-production, filming, post-production.
I have to say that, like, watching it back, that doesn't surprise me as much, because it's probably similar to when Laura watched it. Like, I don't remember being blown away by how it looked. I just remember kind of as a kid of how, like, outrageous it was. But watching it back, I was like, actually, like, the sets and everything, like, you know, Paris, and, you know, when they destroyed, like, Cairo, like, you know, it looks impressive.
And it's all, this is a very important thing, which I didn't even think about before doing this research. It's all real. Yeah. There's no CGI. The explosions are real. The sets are real. There's no green screen, nothing like that. But we'll get more into that in the production. Here we're going to do a new game where I'm going to tell you comedies that came out that year, and you're going to have to guess whether at the global box office they grossed less or more.
Okay.
Just kind of to figure out where it's at. So these all came out the same year, which is a whole other topic of conversation. So Shaun of the Dead.
More or less than Team America?
Yes.
Oh, the global box, I'm going to say more.
So it was less.
Wow.
It's grossed, I'll give you the numbers, that'll help you. So Shaun of the Dead grossed $30 million. Mean Girls came out that year.
Mean Girls is like, people still talk about Mean Girls now, but I don't know how popular it was at the time. I'm going to say more.
Yes, it was more. 130 million.
Oh, okay.
Very successful. We'll be doing that definitely one of these days on the podcast. Then White Chicks.
Oh, White Chicks, that has to be more.
More.
Yeah.
And Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, also that year.
Wow, okay. I'm going to say less for that.
Yeah, less.
But I have to say, probably half of that money that Team America made was from me.
So Shaun of the Dead, 30 million. Harold and Kumar, White Castle, 23 million. Team America made 52 million. White Chicks made 113 million, and Mean Girls made 130 million.
I'm surprised Shaun of the Dead made less, so much less.
British movie.
Yeah,
It's more of it became more of a cult classic then. But side note, great year for original comedies. Other ones that came out that year: 50 First Dates, Dodgeball, Along Came Polly, and Anchorman.
That's the best year probably of cinema history.
It's a specific. I actually wasn't starting off just going for comedies. I was like, well, I might as well stay in the same lane. So this movie cost 32 million to make and grossed 51 million at the global box office. So it was relatively profitable. They joke about when they made it. Trey Parker says that the studios knew they weren't going to make money off an R-rated puppet movie.
Yeah.
And apparently this, I've only saw this in one place, so I can't fully verify it. But apparently, to make sure the integrity of the movie was kept, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and the producer waived their $7 million fee.
Oh, wow.
Kind of to just keep it on budget. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but it does really seem both stuff like that and just generally that these, I mean, they were probably already wealthy. They were not as wealthy as they are now with the new Paramount deal. They're probably close to billionaires now. But they really just felt like this was a movie that needed to be out there, and they just thought it was important. Obviously, they would never say that because it sounds a bit douchey, but that's kind of the sense I get. And you know what? I agree, because there's nothing else. There's never been anything before, and there hasn't been anything since that's like this.
I mean, all these years later, we're here talking about it on a podcast, and I think, you know, that speaks testament. The other thing is when you mentioned about Thunderbirds, like, I know there was the guy who created Thunderbirds. He was quoted in an interview, and he was asked about Team America.
Jerry Anderson.
Yeah, he absolutely hated it.
Really?
He hated it. He said basically he's almost like it was like sacrilege to do that to puppets.
Really?
So this is someone who takes puppets very seriously, and he basically saw what Team America had done and what Trey and Matt had done, and just hated it.
You know what?
Absolutely
I bet they loved that. I bet they loved that someone they were paying homage to hated it.
Honestly, that is the most Matt and Trey thing of all time. Like, you know, it's genius.
So the show came out in the 60s, so he must have been really old. Even he's probably dead now.
I mean, I imagine so, because I looked at kind of his quote, and it was about, you know, it's almost like he holds puppets in such high regard. That's like, you know, that is very Thunderbird.
Yeah.
But it just meant,
I mean, you have to make, I think we'll talk about it later, I think they made 30 to 26 hours of Thunderbirds, which, given how hard it was to make, it must have driven crazy.
Yeah, it's out there.
So at 51 million, it was seen by 8 million people in theaters. Maybe about 1 million of those tickets were you. But now, using concave brand tracking viewership estimates, I put the overall global viewership at over 200 million. So it's been over 20 years. So it's not like some movie that everyone's seen, but it's definitely, I think, falls into the cult classic category. And that's unique viewers. So I think most boys from our generation, most millennial boys will have seen this movie. And if they haven't, I feel sorry for them.
Yes.
So one of the main themes that we'll talk about after we pass the spoiler line is kind of a disdain for actors. And Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who infamously don't use actors in South Park, they might use occasional voice actors, which they did in this. But they hate actors. They said, oh yeah, we wanted to make a puppet movie so we didn't have to deal with actors. So that's a very much an ongoing theme of theirs. And to be fair, I was thinking this. Obviously, you wouldn't want every movie to be made like this, but it kind of proves that you don't need actors because the story is just as decent as, Armageddon or Con Air or whatever. The action is surprisingly entertaining.
Definitely.
Obviously, it's hilarious. You still need the voice actors, which we'll talk about in the cast. They're actually quite important, especially the ones that aren't done by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. But yeah, it is kind of funny that their whole thesis that actors suck is like, they're not actually as essential as they think they are.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I'm also glad that not every movie is made with puppets.
Sure, yeah.
The other important bit of context is obviously the war on terror, which now I have to talk to someone who's maybe 18 now about what they think they're like. That must be how we thought about the Cold War. It's this thing that was sort of around when we were really young, but we didn't really understand. And we mostly remember it ending. But yeah, so for those of you that don't know, this came out in 2004, and obviously in 2001 is when 9/11 happened. The US invaded Afghanistan, and then in short succession, they invaded Iraq. But beyond the wars, which obviously are referenced, actually, to be fair, they don't reference actual war here. They're referencing interventionism, like military strikes and stuff, which actually wasn't as big a thing as this movie makes seem. It's not like America was going around the world and bombing European countries or blowing up Egypt or whatever. It was more that they went in with their army and then just blew shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like overreach.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously the foreign policy implications of that are alluded to here. Specifically, the big thing that was going on as they were writing this is that before they went into Iraq, they had the inspectors for the weapons of mass destruction go in, headed by Hans Blix, who's an actual character in this. And so the Middle East was the main focus, but then North Korea was sort of in the background being like, hey, don't forget about me too. Now everyone takes for granted the fact that North Korea has nuclear weapons. But back then it was sort of a do they, don't they? And almost they pretended they did, even if maybe they didn't. But yeah, so there is a lot of quite important context to know about. On a lighter note, apparently one of the main, there's 100 different movies that have influenced this. We're going to talk about the things that it makes fun of. I've also got a whole card about references to other movies that I picked up on. I'll be curious to see if you picked up on these and if you picked up on others. But one which I didn't get because I haven't seen it is apparently one of their favorite action movies is a film called Megaforce from 1982.
Never seen it.
Never seen it or heard of it either. But it was a big influence for them. Apparently a lot of the action scenes, like the motorcycle jumping over and catching him, which I can, sometimes when you see something, you're like, I don't know the reference, but I can see how it would be a reference. So the reason I bring that up is because that movie was directed by a guy called Hal Needham. A lot of famous stuntmen now have gone on to become directors, and this was the case with this guy. He was famous for being Burt Reynolds' longtime stuntman, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because he's one of the main two influences of the character of Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh,
which is an episode that'll be coming out later this year. So just thought I would plug that because I find it really funny when there are links between episodes, and actually, teaser, there's a really funny link between this movie and Elf that you probably can't guess.
No.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that later. So before we cross the spoiler line, Iain, who would you recommend this movie to?
So apart from 14-year-old boys, I would say anybody who grew up around the same sort of age as me, so kind of mid-30s, and has not seen this film for a start. But I was thinking of this, and I was thinking kind of anybody can enjoy this film. Like, it helps if you've got a very juvenile sense of humour, I think. But
open mind.
Open mind, yeah. Anyone who's got an open mind. But I think you would predominantly enjoy this film if you grew up in the 2000s, maybe the late 90s, and you just want to have a good time and just switch your brain off for an hour and a half.
I think I try never to say specifically this is a chick movie or a guy movie, so I watched it with Senior last night, and she gave it 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which, I'm giving this movie 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So, but she still enjoyed it. I'll have to tell you, it's really funny specifically. I made a note of the specific gag that made her laugh the most. And it's so dumb, but it's really funny. But I do think this is a boys' movie. Right. So I'd be very curious, a guy around our age with a similar sense of humor, if they watched it now. I feel like even if you hadn't seen it as a kid, you would still enjoy it watching it for the first time. But I think the biggest thing is if you watched this movie once when you were a kid and found it funny, and for some reason haven't watched it in the last 20 years, you should probably stop the podcast now, go back, watch it, and then continue with this.
Agreed.
And I'd say the other thing I love about it is it's the sort of movie that you could sit down by yourself and say, I've watched this in 10 years. I've kind of forgotten the main bits and really focus on it. But it's also the perfect movie that you have a couple of mates over who have seen it. You have a couple of drinks.
Yes.
You can talk over it. You can be like, oh, wait, there's that bit. So I watched it a couple of months ago and I sort of fell asleep around the 1 hour mark and then woke up 15 minutes later. And you know what? It's not like I missed anything because it's not exactly a plot heavy movie. You can be like, oh yeah, this is the part where everyone gets really sad and I'm just going to close my eyes for 10 minutes. It's like, oh, I remember this bit. So it's a really rewatchable movie.
Definitely.
And it's a great background movie.
And I do think what you've said there is bang on, because if you've got a couple of mates and you have a couple of drinks, I think that will enhance your viewing experience. It's one of those films, where it's great on its own, but with just 2 or 3 drinks will take it from an 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10.
Absolutely. One final thing I love about this movie is that it's an hour and 37 minutes. So it's nice and short. It's well paced. You can get through it quickly. Usually I just expect movies to be 2 hours. So the fact that you can get through it quickly, I really appreciate that.
Yep.
So with that, we're now going to cross the spoiler line. So we've tried to stay spoiler free, but from now on, we're going to talk about how it ends. We're going to talk about plot points. We're going to talk about everything. So if you haven't seen this movie, go and watch it. If you have seen it and want a refresher before hearing the spoiler line, then go ahead and do that. And otherwise, you've been warned. All right, so I always like to start off with the entertainment value. And some movies, it can be like we did Arrival went out a couple of months ago, and it's a very good movie. But I challenged Barter and I said, how is this entertaining? I think here we have the opposite thing.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Is this anything beyond entertaining? I think we've already said it is. But yes, how would you describe the entertainment value of this movie?
So I just think it's got everything. If you take away the fact that they are puppets, it's got action, it's got music. The music is the best thing of it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm onto that properly. The plot, I think actually, when you compare it to some of the films you mentioned earlier, like Con Air, I think it stands up to those sorts of films. So I think it's got everything. I cannot fault the entertainment of this film, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's primarily funny, absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I agree. The music, which obviously ties into the hilarity, but it's a show of a well-made movie. The fact that you've got good music, like it sounds good, the lyrics are amazing, it ties in perfectly, it's memorable as hell. We're going to talk about how things are funny, but I guess now is a time to talk about why they're funny, if that makes sense.
Yep.
The thing I wrote down is that the humor is mostly, it's absurdity and satire.
Yes.
So it's the fact that they have puppets doing ridiculous things is one of the funniest things. And one of the key things they said when they made it, I feel really bad because the puppeteers were interviewed and they said, one of the most important things with puppeteering is you need lots of time to rehearsal. And Matt and Trey said, that's great. We love to improvise everything. So they would turn up on set with, a script or whatever, but they would pretty much make everything up on the day and be like, we're going to make sure. And they said, we don't know what's going to be funny until we're there on set and we see it. So we have a terrible script and then we just make stuff up as they go. And they make sense of the fact that they needed to actually see the puppets and then we go, wouldn't it be really funny if they said this or if they did this? The first couple of weeks, it seems, they kind of needed to figure out the tone. And one of the key things was it didn't work to have with one exception, I think. It doesn't work having puppets making jokes.
Yes.
So puppets could never be in on the joke. The puppets needed to be dead serious. And apparently that was the thing in Thunderbirds that they thought was so funny, is that it wasn't tongue-in-cheek. It was like, the world depends on us and we're going to do this. And I think Spotswood is the exception. I do think it does feel like he's a bit in on the joke on some of them, but everyone else is very serious and dramatic. And I think that is the primary. There's a million things that's funny, but I think that's the core of it.
I like that. Yeah. And also just how they move is funny. That, and I'd forgotten about that until I watched it again. There are some bits where you can tell Matt and Trey have kind of panned the camera out so you can see the character, the puppet, leave the room, and it is so funny.
So that was the thing that made every time it happened, Sneed to just giggle.
It's so good.
And I think they played it perfectly because if they did it, if every scene you saw their legs moving around, it would lose its. It wouldn't be quite as funny. But it's every other scene. Yeah. They choose the perfect moment where the puppet just dangles away.
And that rings so true, because I didn't realize that about how they kind of improvise. I mean, it makes sense because I think we do South Park in the same way. But if you thought about that, you probably you wouldn't even think about, okay, well, that will be funny. But actually seeing it happen, and I imagine that's probably one of those where they saw it on the day and thought, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
But we have to get this in the film.
And so I'll talk in detail in the production about the actual technical aspect. But one thing here is that you'll notice a lot of the time the shots are from the waist up.
Yeah.
And that's because there's someone lying on the ground that's moving their feet and stuff. Because it's a lot easier than moving the whole, because obviously a puppet, if it's being 100% controlled, is all from strings from above, which is a technical nightmare. Imagine the scenes where there's 20 puppets. There's like 6 to 10 strings per puppet. There's a bunch of people above the set that are doing this. It must have been ridiculous to watch. I mean, I'll put this in the video version of this, like some behind the scenes footage, because it looks absolutely hilarious seeing that. So sometimes when they didn't need to show them walking, they would just have someone who would either hold them in place or, imagine something like rotating for a dramatic shot. If you're doing that from the top, it's super hard. Whereas if you just have someone on the ground and maybe you lock their legs, they just turn it or whatever. But so a lot of the shots that are not part of the action are from the waist up. And clearly because it was easier, but then obviously they were like, no, now we're actually going to make him walk out of the room using the full body. And yeah, I think they probably do it 6 or 7 times, and every single time Cindy would just be laughing. I think it's the thing that made her laugh the most.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I mean, and it's so stupid. But
it's visually hilarious as well. Yeah, visually hilarious, absurd, stupid. And the other thing, I mean, these all tie in is the satire, is the fact that it's making fun of all these action movies, all these tropes, all these people, all the actors, Kim Jong-un, and all of that. And yeah, I think those are kind of the main strands of why it's funny.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought was key, because at one point I tried to ask myself, what is the point of this movie? Which is probably not what you should be asking yourself. But I think the main thing is that it's just meant to make sure that everyone's ridiculous. Make fun of everyone.
Yep.
The US government is ridiculous. Terrorists are absolutely ridiculous. Dictators are ridiculous. Actors are ridiculous.
Yes.
Action movies are ridiculous. Action tropes are ridiculous. But here's one of the key things. It never punches down. The one people it never makes fun of are actually the victims.
It's true.
When Paris is destroyed, they don't make... Obviously, it sucks for France because Paris has been destroyed. But they're not poking fun at the French. The French are the victims. Same in Cairo when they're blowing things up. Really, the people in North Korea that are enslaved and stuff. It's part of the visual, and you could say, oh, they're making fun of this. But not to get too deep on comedy. I think this is one of the things people mistake about jokes. Just because something is in a joke doesn't mean they're the butt of a joke.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and I think that's the case with all the people I've said. And it's actually one of the most important lessons I learned about comedy. Are you familiar with Seth Meyers?
Yes. Yeah.
So Seth Meyers is my current favorite late night host, and I've been to a couple of the live tapings. So he does this really cool thing where you can ask him questions. And so I asked him, why are most comedians left wing? Why is right wing comedy not really work? Like, there's the odd show here or there, but generally there aren't a bunch of movies or TV shows or late night shows that are by right wingers. Full on right, in the same way that there are full on left wingers. And he said the reason is because, and this was, can be polarizing, the right wing tends to punch down. It's saying, oh, immigrants are the problem, and poor people take in too many benefits, and, trans people are ruining us. These are all minorities that I think we can all agree are usually victimized. Whereas the left says, it's big corporations that are taking away our rights, and, it's got big government that's intervening too much. And so it's much easier to do humor where you're punching up.
Definitely.
And because if you're punching down, it's just not funny to be like, oh, haha, poor people, they're like doing this or that. And so I think it's a very important thing here that they don't make, because it would be very easy for them to, for example, make fun of the Middle Eastern people who are not terrorists, but they don't.
No, not at all. So it's a really good point, because actually none of the film is serious at all. But the only part where you maybe could feel like a bit of sympathy is when Paris is destroyed, or when Cairo is destroyed.
Yeah.
Because it pans to the civilians, and they're just spared in shock. That's probably as close as it comes to being serious.
That's such a good point, because it's both can be taken seriously, but it's still also funny because it's pointing out the absurdity of it.
Exactly.
Here's a fun note I made from the behind the scenes. So the Matt Stone mentioned in an interview, I think he was in the UK promoting the movie, but he said that they consider that their humor is a lot more British than it is American.
Okay.
Just kind of the irreverency. And they say one of the reasons because, and this is true of most great comedians in the US, is that Monty Python is one of their biggest influences. So I know a lot of British guys like yourself who love this movie, and so it's funny to think that in the interviews, I'm not just saying this because I'm in the UK right now, but it's funny that they consider their humor to be British. And obviously South Park and these movies are extremely successful over here.
I hadn't heard that, which is really good to hear. But unless you are a big fan of South Park, you will think South Park is crass and stupid and not as clever as it is. But then there's probably similarities between it and Monty Python. And so actually, seeing Monty Python held in the kind of the highest regard, and then South Park is more successful than Monty Python will ever be, and there's obviously a massive, inspiration from it. But yeah, I still don't think it gets the critical acclaim that it should, or the wider critical acclaim. Because I think there's still a lot of people out there who think it's just kids swearing. Yeah. That's it.
It's been 27. It's been almost 30 years. You think people would have picked up by now?
Yeah.
It's a lot smarter than that.
Yeah.
You need to judge things by its content, not by its cover.
Yeah, I completely agree.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the story. I don't do this for all movies, but when it's relevant, I do. The opening credits are awesome. It starts with Paramount in like the hard metal, and then the Team America to the explosion. And I think if you're watching it for the first time as a kid, you go, oh shit. And if you're rewatching it, you're like, let's go! So just a really strong start, and then you go straight in with Paris with a terrorist attack. So most cliche action thing ever. They're a terrorist with a weapon of mass destruction that want to blow up one of the world capitals, and Team America come in and just shoot everyone and blow shit up.
Yep. First of all, shout out to the opening scene where it is a puppeteer. I think that is you. Yeah. Could it start with anyone who hasn't seen it? There is a puppeteer, a little French boy, and he's, and then it pans out and it's the puppeteer is actually a puppet. Yeah. And then it kind of goes out and you're like, okay,
So meta.
So meta. And then, as you're going through it, it's this beautiful looking Paris and it looks stunning, I think. And then out of nowhere, very stereotypical terrorist. And, the music in the background is very kind of Middle Eastern. And
you hear them, do you hear them talking in this?
The terrorists?
Yeah.
Yes, you do. So in there, yeah, exactly, which is then just on repeat. And then out of nowhere, Team America come through. But so the reason I kind of suggested this is that I mentioned kind of my cinema experience.
Oh, yeah.
And it was honestly, from the opening scene, people were laughing, myself included. And, I remember it crystal clear. It's from when the little lads, he bumps into the terrorist and he turns around and the camera zoomed into the terrorist face.
And the music is perfect.
Oh, it's like, and, again, your stereotypical kind of almost like terrorist music that would be in like a proper film. And from that minute, people were laughing. And, and it just continued for the entire film. And I just thought, and then it just gets absolutely ridiculous. Team America come out of nowhere. They destroy all of Paris. Like the Eiffel Tower falls on the Arc de Triomphe. The Louvre gets bombed. And then I think when I rewatched it, and I remember the first bit, but the blowing up the Louvre with the guy in it is just so, it's just, and then when they turn around, yeah, team, we did it, and you just see broken Paris. It's so funny. It just got everything, and it's just the perfect. It's a perfect tone setter. Exactly. If you don't like that first scene, you can walk out. Yeah, completely that. And, it's just, you say, it's a piss take on action films. It has got everything stereotypical in an action film you can expect. One of the characters dies, which, you always see. And then, there's the martial arts fight. There's, it's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous.
The bad guy who kills the coming back from life. And
exactly. And also something I didn't realise until I was doing a bit of research for today. The cobblestones of Paris. You know this? Yeah, they're made across. Yeah. Like, that was
one of the first facts I found when researching this a few weeks ago. Yeah. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Exactly.
But I hadn't seen it. You probably didn't see it the first times.
Obviously, until I did a bit of research. Oh my God. Yeah.
After I found that out, I was like, I need to find every single detail like that I can. So here are some others that I found. Obviously, so I'm part French, so some of these hit really close. There's a bakery. Bakery is nothing close to bakery in French. It's pâtisserie. Patisserie. Yeah. It's patisserie. But there's a bakery, and the name of it is Le Béquerie. And so it's spelled L-E with the accent, B-E with the accent, K-E with the accent, R-I-E.
It's just so good.
And so that one you can actually see. There's this other one you can only see half, but I figured it out. There's a cafe in the background of the square, and it's called Café Merde, which translates as shit cafe. Then you've got the croissants. There's a bunch of umbrellas in the background that are all just Perrier thing, which is obviously a classic French brand. Yeah. And then this one, Karl Lagerfeld is there. I think in the last shot of Paris Destroyed, there's like 5 or 6 marionettes, and there's one in the background. It's clearly Karl Lagerfeld.
So good.
I'll show you this later, and I'll put it in the video. So it's clearly he's in a black suit, white shirt, sunglasses, white hair tied back.
Just so good.
And and they put that there. They're like 99.9% of people are not going to see this, but put that 0.1 we're going to do. So with the croissants.
I've never seen it. Do you know what I mean? I've watched the film countless times. 9 out of 9 on the quiz, but I didn't know any of that, honestly.
This is what I was talking about a movie that when you scratch the surface, you're like, there's so much more than meets the eye. To me, that's what makes a movie amazing. So moving on to Everyone Has AIDS, the first musical number. So let's talk about that scene and then what happens afterwards, because we're going to do a full section about the songs. Iain and I have both independently ranked them from least awesome to most awesome, because none of them are bad. And so we're not going to talk about the songs in any depth of going through the story.
After Paris has been destroyed, then moves on to completely out of nowhere, characters that we've never seen before, and it's this puppet, this actor who's in a Broadway show called Everybody Has AIDS. We'll come on to the music, but it's absolutely brilliant. And, you know, the whole audience is in tears because the song that he's singing is so sad. His acting is so good. It has moved the audience to tears. It then pans to this mysterious looking older gentleman in the audience.
It's the number of times it goes to him, and he's like so dark compared to everyone else. It's so ridiculous.
It's honestly absolute. But again, another like ridiculous cliche that you would see in countless films. You know,
the confidential file.
The confidential file, mysterious music every time it goes to him. He then visits Gary in his dressing room, and it kind of goes on from there. He tries to recruit Gary to then become an actor. Yeah, for at this point we don't know why.
Well, it's to stop terrors. I actually we'll mention them here, but we'll do favorite lines later as well. But I don't think it made my top 10. But one of my favorites is Gary. Somebody out there wants you dead, and he's like, "Wait, what? What did I do?" It was like, "They're called terrorists, Gary, and they want to kill all of them." Which again is such a perfect cliche in how they talk in these.
But it's just again, and you know, it's just so clever.
Right? Iain, someone wants you dead out there.
What did I do? But yeah,
you were born.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he tries to recruit him. Gary mistakenly thinks that he wants sexual favours because he's from Hollywood, which I thought was really, really good.
But you know what? This was pre-Me Too. They knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. He then goes outside. There's a ridiculous white limousine waiting for him, of which I know we'll come on to favourite quotes. It then kind of moves on to the point where he says, "Now suck my cut." And you know, it's just obviously, you know, he doesn't, you know, really want to do it, but here's a joke. Is as fine. Yeah, exactly. When I was deciding, you know, kind of which film to do as part of this podcast, there are two core memories that I have about this film. So the first is going to the cinema to watch it. The second is in the same year, kind of late, must have been later on in the year, but early the following year, I tried to buy the film because I loved it so much. And actually, my dad loved it. So he went to the cinema because I loved it so much, I wouldn't shut up about it. He and my mum went and they loved it. When it came out to buy, couldn't get it on DVD. So it was the last ever film that was bought by us, by our family, on VHS. And then kind of when school is kind of coming to an end, it's like end of term, we have this, you know, weird thing. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same in the school that you went to. Kind of the last couple of days, just a write-off. Yeah. Like, you know, it's just you basically bring in toys and just watch films and stuff. Because I had a VHS, I took in here Team America to watch. No one else had a video because obviously we're getting to the point of like DVDs, you know. Obviously, it's a school, so it's outdated technology, so it only has a VHS. Never forget it. Mrs. Gale, my English teacher, I presented her the video, said, "Oh, it's a puppet film." She was like, she said, happy days, I can just chill out for an hour. Puts it on, and obviously, almost immediately, she is like, "What the fuck is this?" The whole, I would say 50% of the class are in stitches. The boys. The boys are in absolute stitches. The girls are like, "What are we watching here?" And she said, and I swear to God, this is true, this is not exaggerated, she said, one more swear word and this film is being taken off. And it goes to the scene where he's in the limousine and he goes, "Right, now suck my cock." And she said, "Right, that's it. Enough of the film." And, you know, that is just such a core memory. But going back, she then took the
That's amazing.
She even took the video out. But then I remember I had to go back at the end of the day and get it. And she said to me, like, "What is this film called? Because it's brilliant and I want to watch it." And I thought, that is so good.
Oh my God.
She just didn't think she could keep it on in a room full of kids. But yeah, it was brilliant. And I think that, because of that line and that scene, always holds like a special place in my mind because of just that moment in school, and it just could not have been timed any better.
And that story is perfect because it's funny enough that she was so angry, but the fact that she actually deep down loved it is perfect.
It'll be honest, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, fair enough. She can't show that to children.
You know, she's got a room full of kids, and Team America's on in the corner. I think, you know, there's taking.
I loved also that that's probably about 12, 13 minutes into it. And there's probably been about 50 swear words already. So she had a really high...
You really wanted to watch that film.
Oh, but she also wanted to keep her job.
Yes.
One detail. So the musical is actually called Everyone Has AIDS. Is it called Lease?
Oh, yeah. Because it's Lease. Because
lay off rent. Oh, do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Hey, no.
I think there's an Andrew Garfield movie that came out a few years ago. It's about the guy who wrote Rent.
Okay.
And so Rent is about a bunch of struggling artists who live in New York in 70s or 80s, but a bunch of them, and it's during the AIDS epidemic. I think most of them are gay. And so it is about that. And again, it's not important to get it, but it makes it. I think it's when I watched the Andrew Garfield movie, and I was like, I think it's got the very recognizable white on red logo.
Yeah.
It's like that looks just like in Team America Road Police. And so yeah, it's just making fun of these like over dramatic things about very serious things. It's not my favorite song. Has America Fuck Yeah played yet or not? No, it hasn't. Okay. So this is the first musical number, and it's a great introduction.
Can I say, just before we move on as well, special mention, which I didn't pick up at the time, to a line in that song. It's like, it's talking about everyone who has AIDS, and one of it is I think it's like, my nan and my dog Old Blue.
Yeah.
That is just
and my dog Old Blue.
Yeah, I didn't pick up
the
on
Pope has AIDS, and so do you. Yeah,
it's so good. But anyway, yeah.
So we won't have time because we'd need an hour just for that to go through all the lyrics of every song. But if you actually do go through any of them with a fine-tooth comb, you're like, it's absolutely brilliantly written.
Completely.
Limousine, then they get to the base. This is where they introduce the team.
Yeah.
So we've met them before, but they're introduced with their very cliche thing is like, oh, he's the martial arts expert. He's the captain of the football team, and the captain of the team, she's clairvoyant. She's our psychology expert.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them more in the characters later. And so yeah, they try and recruit him. And it's funny because it's like, so you in or out? And he's like, you can leave right now. And he's like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And so then we get the second song, which is the What Would You Do?
Yep.
So this is an interesting thing from a story screenwriting point of view. So I read a couple of books on it, and they say a very important thing, because most movies have this point where someone is taken out of an ordinary situation and offered the opportunity to do something, is that there always needs to be a hesitation, because from a storytelling point of view, it'd be very boring if it was like, Gary, we want you to become a spy. And he said, okay, no. And it's one of those things, especially if you're writing something, it's a bit annoying because you're like, well, now I need to manufacture a reason about why I don't want them to do it. And that's why they're doing this, if anyone is ever wondering. But again, it's a cliche, but it's also a necessary cliche because, as you were saying, obviously the plot is stupid. But other than the whole actor dimension, this could just be a real live action film.
Easily.
But they have to follow the same beats of a film. And, it's not the best plot in the world, but it works. And one of the reasons is because they follow these traditional beats of having him hesitate. And so in this case, the reason he hesitates is because I don't think we find out until later, but we keep getting these flashbacks that his brother...
Yeah, so his brother... So Gary was acting, whatever that means, as a child on the rails of a gorilla pen in the zoo, which in itself is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the fact that, you could be a child and you're acting on the rails of a zoo and people are so captivated, they are just in awe.
Great actor.
He's such a good actor. He's the best actor in the world. And then off the back of that, he falls in, shock horror, into the gorilla exhibit, and his brother jumps in to save him. His brother unknowingly has blueberries in his pocket, and in the words of the America, the gorillas just went absolutely crazy for the blueberries and threw him.
Everyone knows gorillas love blueberries.
Yeah, so his brother did not survive the gorillas.
So because of that, he's a bit scared to get involved because of the danger his acting can do. Yeah, so we get the full story later on, but this is kind of intro to this point as being his main hesitation. And then What Would You Do is very over-patriotic and basically like, you need to protect your country. Is What Would You Do? That's when they say freedom isn't free.
Yeah.
I always actually think of it as freedom isn't free because I'm sure that's a line that was used during the War on Terror.
Yes.
But specifically, it's one of those, it's freedom isn't free. It costs a hefty fucking fee.
I mean, and we'll come on to the songs in a minute, but I struggle to put anything above that. I think it's so good. And I think like this scene as well, like aesthetically, is so pleasing because it's probably the only time where the puppet is just in like the real world, and he's there like holding the railings. And
actually, there's another later on in the motorcycle. Oh, motorcycles on the wall burning. Like, they filmed that. They just took him to Washington and just
the idea of doing that. I mean, what a fun day that'd be. Just take the puppet and film him. Next to the Abraham Lincoln statue. Like looking at and like leaning on like the great. That it's so like over the top.
You can see there the ratio. So the puppets are 2 feet tall. So they're basically the puppet's supposed to represent a 6 foot person. So they're 1/3 ratio, which is why they look so small in those scenes. Then we get the Kim Jong-il introduction. So I think this is his meeting with the terrorist. Where he shoots his interpreter. Yeah. Which is, there's no better way to make someone out to be a bad guy than have him shoot one of his employees the first time you see it, which again is actually a trope that you see all the time in action movies.
I just think, we probably spoke about the first three proper scenes. And I think already, like, you're all over the place. Do you know what I mean? Like, you had a musical about AIDS, you had Paris being destroyed. Now you're in North Korea. Like, it is just so ridiculous.
But again, I think if you took the beats of your average action movie, I think it follows. You get the opening scene, you get introduced to the main character, then you get a bit of exposition on the base and what they do, and then you introduce the villain. So I think it's very much on track. Gary returns to the base and he says that it helped them. He has his surgery, his valmorification, I think it's called.
One of my favorite scenes. He looks like a puppet with hair stuck on his face, pubes, and with pubes on his face, and it's just so good. Like, again, like, they're panning out, they're sawing him, like, they've got a drill which is not being picked up properly. It's just, and then the end of it, the end result, like, if you were in any doubt that the film was ridiculous up until this point, that scene, like, you know what you're getting.
Because the surgery looks like really high tech and slick, and then it's the worst result you could possibly.
It's brilliant.
And then we go to Egypt. Again, you were saying about if you had any doubt about how ridiculous it is. If for some reason maybe you missed how ridiculous he looked. The fact that they're supposed to go undercover and they come in the helicopters, land in the market, crash on top of it, and he just walks into the bar and then goes undercover.
And the bar is like a foot away from where they land. It's so good.
But that's what I love is like they're trying so hard on certain details, like the explosions or the croissant sidewalks and all that, and other stuff that like we don't give a shit. That doesn't supposed to make sense. It's not supposed to be credible. It's not supposed to be realistic.
Yeah, and even in that scene, I think they reference like go to super secret Team America hiding places. They just stood there. They're not hiding at all. They just stood in the middle of the market.
And then so he goes undercover. He convinces them with the super amazing acting. But then they look out the window and they see Team America, which, again, I'm realizing this as I'm saying, which is another fun thing of doing something stupid, but then be like, well, we need for the plot, we need it to be a chase. So they're just going to see them now.
Yeah.
So then they have the car chase. Again, little details. I'm sure you've picked up on this one. The Jeep that they drive.
Yes.
Every time that Jeep is used, it has to smash into something.
Yeah,
it never goes straight. It's like in Paris it smashes into the store, in Cairo it smashes into the store. It just always smashes stuff.
It's just so good.
And then in the car chase scene, they don't know that Gary is in the Jeep. So one of my favorite lines is when Sarah just goes into the bar and just shoots absolutely everybody. And because she's the more like calm, sweet one, and the one who's clairvoyant and sensitive, and just goes in with his massive gun and just shoots everybody.
Yeah. Which is an absolute rip-off of Star Wars. Like, the music's the same as Star Wars and everything.
So the bar is, I had this in my reference. The bar is meant to be a rip-off of Star Wars. I think more when they arrive in, because even the music sounds a little bit like
very similar.
Yeah, in the Star Wars A New Hope. But yeah, then she goes in later on and just, I think someone says something and she just shoots everyone, but then realizes he's not there. And so tries to tell the guys in the chase. And then he just goes, let's just kill these guys and then we'll figure out what she wanted.
So good, honestly. And they have like a secret signal. And
oh my God, the signal.
He is doing the signal, which, by the way, he's just a puppet with a towel wrapped around his head, with hair stuck on his face, waving his arms above his head.
Iain, could you tell us what, for our visual viewers, what is the signal?
Oh, okay. So visual signal. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe I almost forgot that bit.
But he is doing the signal, and then they zoom in on him. They have binoculars as they're doing the car chase. One of the Team America puppets is like, I think he's saying, "Kiss me, kiss," and he's like, arrogant asshole or something. Then and they try and kill him, and it's just so stupid. But it just works every time.
And then Lisa saves Gary with the motorcycle jump over thing before all the terrorists get killed.
Brilliant.
Then we get the intro to FAG, the Films Actor Guild. The couple of times I watched this, I always think, wait, that's not actually the name, or is it?
I thought exactly the same. So it's Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, which, you know what? It makes me think, because Screen Actor Guild makes a lot less sense than film. Like, Films Actor Guild makes sense. I swear, that does make me wonder, and I actually haven't researched this. There's only so many things that you can research. Whether someone told them, we were going to call ourselves that, and then we realized that the acronym would have been FAG.
I mean, it's so easy, isn't it? It is so easy.
And then basically, so this just introduces the storyline that there's a bunch of actors who are against the war on terror, and they're against Team America. And to be fair, at this point, you're like, well, I mean, fair enough, because Team America are destroying the world. But they're shown as being super douchey and annoying and just very, very pretentious. Headed by the one and only Alec Baldwin, the greatest actor in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we go back to Kim Jong-il, and so this is our second scene with him and the iconic Hans Blix one.
Brilliant.
So this is the guy I talked about who was the actual weapons inspector in Iraq.
Yes.
And so he's clearly in this inspecting North Korea and saying, and I love when he says, "Oh, we need more accesses. Like, otherwise, what's going to happen? Otherwise, we'll send you a really sternly worded letter," which is just making fun of how ridiculous the UN was with all of their inspections in Iraq. And then, yeah, he does the classic, again, another trope, Iain the villain thing where he drops him into, also, physically, he goes down, and I guess he's going down. Oh, then it comes to
I know, honestly. Yeah, I get, but it's, and I, you know, like when I was watching it again, and, you know, going back to like the animals in here, out of nowhere, like real, I mean, they obviously meant to be sharks. I don't know if they actually are.
Yeah, it's actually, it's a nurse shark.
It's a nurse shark. But then, you know,
I hadn't actually noticed until this last one that because sometimes you just assume that everything, unless the cats are so obviously cats, it's jarring. But you just kind of assume, oh, it must be a puppet. Because I noticed that in Egypt, they have camels, and those are puppet camels.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if there are other animals, but yeah, the nurse shark is the first real animal.
But again, like, you know, just him getting ripped apart. And, you know, shout out to the fact he's got a briefcase. Like, he has a briefcase surgically attached to his hand, which is so UN.
Apparently, when they sent the movie to get rated, the two things. So do you know about R versus NC-17?
Yeah. Oh, no, actually, no.
So NC-17 is basically porn. And I think the point is that if you've got an NC-17, you won't be able to be shown nationwide. It's a death sentence for a movie that's supposed to come out in theaters. So you can't have an NC-17, right? So you have to get to R-rated. And so you basically send your movie and they say, this is what we've rated it. This is what you need to change. And so you're an NC-17 now. To get to an R, you need to change these things. And the biggest thing was the sex scene, which I get to shortly. But the other thing was they were really offended about the Hansblicks being eaten by a shark.
Is that true?
Yeah, which they didn't actually change that one. Maybe they made it shorter or less graphic or whatever. But Trey Parker, Matt Stone rightly said this. Oh, they have no problem with people's heads being blown up or whatever.
Completely.
But somehow, maybe it's because it was a real person or whatever.
But then King Jong-il is a real person.
Yeah, but I guess he doesn't. Oh, yeah, I guess he gets impaled.
He probably.
Yeah,
true.
It's a weird. I mean, it probably was the politics at the time. It's like, yeah, but Kim Jong-il is a dictator. Hans Blix is just. I mean, Hans Blix wasn't a bad person, but it was just the institution was a bit ridiculous.
None of the actors come out well. You know.
No one. I don't think anyone comes out well as a target, as we said, except for the victim.
Yeah.
So after that, to celebrate the Egypt, we have the base party.
Oh,
which is that one is one I think you see the full body, and it's just like really funny. Them partying,
you bit like dancing.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Then we get the full story about the brother.
Yeah,
and then we have probably one of the best lines in the movie that we'll keep for later. And let's just say they end up having sex.
They have a nice time.
Yeah, they have a good time. So this apparently was originally 2 minutes long, the sex scene, but they had to cut it down to about 50 seconds. So I got the normal version and then the unrated version.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a bunch of different versions. The sex scene wasn't that much longer. The difference in the unrated version is they piss and shit on each other.
So for the first time ever, I'm glad you've mentioned about pissing and shitting, because I've seen the extended version, send it to you. And when he shits on her, or she shits on him, I can't remember now, it just thought, this is mental. What am I watching here?
I'll be honest, for me, my line of like comedy is I'm not a big fan of like physical humor. There's one of the In-Betweener movies where one of them, like there's a poo in there and the water slide. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not saying it's wrong. It shouldn't be like that. I'm just saying for me that like too much. So you know what? I don't need to watch that version every time.
I would also say the normal version is hardly
PG.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no. Like, you're seeing puppets do ungodly things to one another.
I think the scene last night, I was like, how is this almost more jarring than real people doing it? Like, I think it's because you have puppets and you haven't seen, because you've never seen puppet tits before.
No,
you see
exactly. And, you know, just the fact that it's just, again, so obviously puppets. Like, you know, there's no you know, cock. There's no genitals at all. They're just basically bumping on one another in these most ridiculous positions.
Some of the shots, Trey said that I think they came up with the idea with a Barbie and Ken, and they're like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if these things happen? And then when they were on set on the day, as a saying about how you need to, if you do a close up enough, you can hold pause.
Yes.
So it was like, well, if we do this, they literally just did take them and just like made them hump each other without the strings or anything at times.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, it worked. Just again, probably
iconic.
Iconic, yeah.
I mean, if you said puppet sex to anyone without even a movie context, anyone who's seen it, we go Team America.
Yeah, exactly.
Then the Panama scene. That's the terrorist attack, and now that I've explored the technical aspect, is actually one of my favorite scenes because they built an entire set of this and then actually blew up, and 1,000 gallons of water came and flooded all the things. Apparently the idea of the scene is they thought it would just be really funny to show puppets getting drowned because obviously with the strings and stuff it looks ridiculous.
Yes, and it does work.
In the behind the scenes, some of the people were like, yeah, Trey and Matt really like hurting puppets in this, which I'm sure these puppeteers revere these puppets.
Yeah.
Oh, why do you want to keep blowing them up and drowning?
Yeah.
Apparently they had to shoot it a couple of times, so they would have to reset. They'd have to dry all the puppets and just.
I mean, it would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? But something from this scene that I love is how the puppets, they've gone away. They've done the stereotypical French people. They've done the stereotypical Egyptians. Now, in Panama, all you hear from the puppets is "No me gusta."
Yeah, I know.
"No me gusta,"
and
I'm drowned. "No me gusta. No me gusta." As they're being dragged down by all this water. I know. Genius.
I'm sure I noticed it before, but last night that bit really got me. I have that in my favorite.
So funny.
So then we get the aftermath at the base, and they're like, "Oh no, we screwed up," because they basically did that as a retaliation for Egypt. Then Fag say this is all Team America's fault. They start staging a protest outside. Michael Moore turns up.
Yeah.
So, do you know anything about why Michael?
No, but I meant to have a look at this and I didn't. So I'm hoping you know.
I know all the details.
Please.
So Michael Moore, again, for those of you that don't know, was very famous for the documentary Fahrenheit 9/11 that must have come out before this movie, which is actually a pretty good documentary explaining the U.S., basically explaining 9/11 and how the U.S. not covered it up, but like, for example, one of the things I remember is that they flew out bin Laden's family of the country on the day after when all the planes were grounded, because basically the U.S. has some pretty dodgy dealings with Saudi Arabia. Osama bin Laden was a Saudi Arabian originally. So documentary about this, but also very much on the left, very much anti-war. Honestly, generally, I would say on the right side of things. However, Michael Moore also made a movie called Bowling for Columbine. Have you?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, which is about gun violence. This is kind of his big break before Fahrenheit 9/11. And you know who was in Bowling for Columbine? Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
No.
Because Columbine is in Colorado, where they're from, where South Park is based. And Michael Moore did something very sneaky. He did the interview with them, just sort of talking to them. I don't think they said anything particularly interesting, but just talking to them about them because they'd grown up in that area. And then right after that, he showed this cartoon version of the history of America. I think it's like 8-10 minutes long. And you would never mistake it for South Park. But it's very South Park-esque. It's cartoons, and it's basically the history of America. It's like, oh, they came over because they were being persecuted. They killed all the natives, then they got slaves, and it's basically all about how Americans are addicted to guns. I agree with the premise of it, that Americans are addicted to guns because they were scared of slaves, they were scared of each other, they're scared of everything. But even watching it through this lens of a bit of skepticism, it is a massive oversimplification of the history of America and very much one-dimensional, like making everything about guns. But so the interview I saw of Matt and Trey said what they really were pissed off about is because they were shown right before, it implied that they had made the cartoon because it was South Park style. And because of that, they always hated Michael Moore because they didn't endorse his whole anti-gun idea. Like, they came from conservative families. Their families had guns. Yeah, they thought Columbine was bad, and I'm sure they're on the correct side of this. Like, I'm sure they've done South Park episodes about gun violence, which has obviously gotten a lot worse since all of this happened. And so they actually have a gag on South Park one season where there's just a shooting every other episode of the school.
Exactly.
So they're very much aware of the problem and on the correct side of it. But they didn't like being used in their way.
No, that is sneaky.
But here's another thing, which I've researched it as much as I could. So I love when you go to old obscure YouTube videos and you see the comments, and usually people have come for the same reason you have. And so the first comment on the Michael Moore cartoon, which is taken out of Bowling for Columbine, is someone saying, well, this doesn't actually look like South Park, so I don't understand what the big hoo-ha is. Obviously, they come for the same reason I had. But then someone said, no, the problem isn't that it looks like South Park, is that it's a ripoff of Trey Parker's college movie, The History of America.
Oh.
Which is in his filmography, is coming out in 1992. It's a film, he did it in film school. I found it on YouTube. I'll put it in the video version of this. I'll show it to you later. The video on YouTube is really weird because it has what sounds like an African person doing the voiceover. So I don't know if they've taken the original and added the voice, but the point is I'll show the visual. the visual is extremely crude. But because the first South Park episodes, they literally animated it with piece of paper they moved around, and it's the same animation style. It is super crude, but it's very, very similar. Like the visuals are the same as what Michael Moore used, and the beats are the same. About they came, like you see people on a map coming over on a ship and telling the story of America. So it seems like it's a combination of the fact that they ripped off Trey Parker's actual movie, probably without asking his permission, and then the fact that they implied that they had endorsed that.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, but also to think you're going to get away with that without getting the piss taken out of you completely, probably forever, by, two of the most creative minds of all time,
But to be fair, I don't remember them making fun of Michael Moore in South Park. Like, I know Rob Reiner they made fun of at one point, obviously rest in peace now. But Michael Moore they make fun of in this very same way here, of showing him as being like a fat, greedy piece of shit. But then suicide bombs himself later on.
I think that they refer to him as a weasel, I'm sure. Yeah, like the fat something weasel, I'm sure is the line in my head.
So that's the background on why Michael Moore is in this. So Gary leaves because he said this is all my fault because of my acting. Then we get the bummer remix of America Fuck Yeah. America Fuck Yeah. And I think it's the exact same lyric.
It is.
Just suck on my ball.
Brilliant.
And then we have, again, little detail that you could watch 10 times and not notice. So they're going in their planes, flying to...
Oh, where are they going?
I don't even know.
Is it Panama? Anyway, it doesn't.
They're going somewhere. And it's like, oh no, there's terrorist airplanes. And I think that's definitely not an accidental line. Is terrorists don't have planes, but I think it just I think it's a commentary on the fact that back then anyone who was against America was a terrorist. It was like, maybe they're just a state that doesn't like you. But the first planes are actually terrorist planes. They've got like chains and stuff inside the plane.
Oh, good.
But then it's the North Korean Air Force, and they have a pretty cool action sequence that goes on for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and they turn it like the submarines and all but it's all going on.
And the funny thing is to think when you watch behind the scenes is that actually all the stuff with planes and stuff was probably the easiest thing to shoot because they're literally just moving the planes around versus having to like do all the puppets and stuff. So yeah, all the Team America people get shot down and taken prisoner. Michael Moore does a suicide bomb and Mount Rushmore and blows it up. Yeah. And then we get So Wrong. Another great musical, which we'll talk about later. So that is Kim Jong-il basically singing a song about how busy he is and how lonely he is. Because his character is basically always pissed off. His plans are going well, but he just feels like everyone's stupid, everyone's incompetent, and he's always so busy. I just love that. You know how much shit I have to do?
Yeah, and how fucking busy I am.
Whenever I get busy now, I think about, God damn it, I'm so busy. Then... the bar scene.
Oh my god, yeah. So my favourite scene in the entire film.
So take us through it and tell us about it.
Gary is drowning his sorrows. He's got a big beard because he's unkept, and he's obviously.
What else does he have?
He's got a drink.
Okay, so one thing we forgot to mention earlier is during the briefing before Egypt, the hammer. Yeah, I'm actually glad remembering it now. So before Egypt, they say to him, it's the classic thing. If you get captured, normally you get given a cyanide pill. And they just slide a hammer across the
Absolutely.
And nothing else is said about it. But then in the bar, he's sitting there with the drink and the hammer.
I don't think I've ever noticed the hammer.
I think I had before, but I noticed it really well.
One of my favourite scenes of any film of all time. There's still bits.
Yeah. They basically say, not to over-explain, but it's basically that he's contemplating suicide because he got his suicide hammer.
He's contemplating suicide. He's not happy. His acting has got people killed again, And, he's in this very typical kind of rundown bar. He's drinking too much. And then this man comes over to him. Your typical kind of, pissed up old man in a pub and does the most ridiculous speech to him that you'd ever heard about, the difference. There's 3 types of people: dicks, pussies, and arseholes. Dicks and pussies, they have their faults, but they've got to work together to take down arseholes, or else everybody gets covered in shit. And, when you break down that speech, it kind of does make sense.
So he reuses the speech at the end.
He does.
Well, I actually have a whole card on the speech, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, I think it kind of does.
I think it makes sense.
I think he makes it better. I think he makes it better when he does it, when he repurposes it at the end.
Definitely.
But there's definitely the seeds of it in this.
Completely. He's had too much to drink.
Gets kicked out.
He's stumbling out the bar. They kick him out, so you're not welcome here anymore. And he stumbles out. He's like, he's banging into the bins out the back of the pub and the back of the bar. There's this woman doing her laundry outside at night time, and she says to him, probably my favourite line in the film, which is like, "You just gave up on life didn't you? And he's there stumbling around and he collapses in a heap and you think that's it. And then out of nowhere, the most elaborate, drawn out, sick sequence I've seen in any film happens. And, I've done a bit of research on this, but I would say it probably goes on for at least a minute of seeing this puppet just being progressively more violently sick and sick and sick. And, to the point where at the end of it, it is literally splattering all over him. And then it pans out above him. And he's just lying in what must be like 2 litres of just
more.
thick. Probably 10 litres.
Yeah, 10, 20 litres.
The puppet's a 2 foot, actually. He's just...
Oh, yeah, maybe it's 2 liters of him, but if he was a human, the puddle is bigger than his...
Yeah, it's basically a swimming pool. Yeah, it's a swimming pool of sick. And, and again, that is just...
So...
It must be another one of them where, that was always the plan. He was going to be sick. And then Matt and Trey just made it the most ridiculous, over-the-top thing you've ever seen. But it is, to this day, my favourite scene in this film, one of my favourite scenes in any film, because it is just ridiculous.
I saw them they were being interviewed by Conan O'Brien about this, and he talked about the scene, and they just say about... The whole premise, obviously, is about how, you have scenes that go on too long. Something that's funny, but goes on too long, and then it stops being funny. And they say, yeah, but if you keep going long enough, it becomes... Actually, no, I think... And then Conan says, yeah. And then but if you keep on going long enough, it becomes funny again. And they go, yeah. And then we kept going after that.
And that is exactly it.
I haven't done a full analysis of this, but I think it's funny that it goes on too long, then it's funny again.
Yes.
Is there a second lull? Because there might be 3 peaks. There's definitely 2, but there might be 3 of it goes down and then it comes back.
I just think because each time he's sick, it's more extreme.
Yeah, and because he falls down.
Yeah, that is
maybe it's 2 peaks of him throwing up, and then the finale is the pullback shot, and it looks so funny.
It's just so good. And I remember reading about it. Not for this actually, but ages ago, and there was literally like a hand pump.
Yeah. Because they said we can do as much as we want.
Yeah, and it's just the idea that there's a trained professional there. Like with a hand pump, like frantic, just expelling this puke from this puppet is just genius.
Yeah. Then there's the FAG meeting. This is where they join forces with Kim Jong-il, so they become full-on bad guys. North Korea torture scene with Kim Jong-il and the Team America guys, and he basically does the cliche thing of saying, this is my plan, I'm gonna blow up the Taj Mahal and blow up Big Ben and blow up all of that. And so yeah, again, a trope. You have to have him explain his plan, because the reason why they do this is because obviously the good guys are always going to stop them, so you're never going to see the plan. So you need to know it.
Yeah, so true.
And they show it, which I love.
It's brilliant. I think we may come on to this, but one of the other lines in this film that I really like is they turn basically 9/11 into a numerical equation.
Yeah.
So at first the first terrorist attack was going to be 9/11 times 100. Then it was 9/11 times 1,000. And then for Kim Jong-il's plan, it was going to be 9/11 times 2,346 or something. And they're like, oh my God, I don't even know what that is. And he's like, no one did. That's so good.
So I actually have it in my quotes of the exact number, but what number did you say was the third?
I think it's 2,346 or something.
56.
50.
But you're very close.
Yeah.
I did think about putting that in the quiz.
That's why I looked at it. But this might be a question in the quiz.
Then we get Pearl Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
Pearl Harbor sucked almost as much as I miss you.
It's just, again, I won't go into it because we'll talk about
the great songs.
Yeah.
So Gary returns to the base because once again he's had a change of mind. Because he's going back because he misses Lisa is the main reason. Yeah. Then we get the blowjob scene. So I made a note here. The blowjob is actually, beyond being hilarious, is actually useful narratively, because when he goes to free the Team America, they're like, why should we trust you? And then Spots was like, he sucked my dick. And they're like, yeah, okay, we trust you. Fair enough. So really important narratively. So how does Gary end up sucking Spotswood's dick, Iain?
So he goes back to base, and Spotswood doesn't trust him because he's you abandoned us, Gary. Yeah, and he's a fucking quitter. I think he goes in as well. And also, good impression, very good impression of Spotswood.
I've watched a lot.
Yeah. So he has to prove his worth.
He has to. Also, just a note. He looks hilarious because he's obviously been in the bombs, so his hair's everywhere. He's covered in soot, but he's still holding his
drink. His tie is all skewered.
Oh yeah.
It's like his tie is sticking up by his ear. It's just
also, and there's just a million things to say. I love that every time Spotswood's in his chair, he's constantly moving side to side.
At one point, he's upside down.
It's just like so why? Never acknowledged, but yeah, no. He blown up Spotswood.
Yeah,
trust Gary.
Spotswood's been blown up. He goes back to base. He needs to prove Spotswood needs Gary to prove that he can be trusted. And the only way to do that is to go down on him. I mean, clearly, yeah.
How else?
What other way is there to prove your trust to an aging old puppet? And Gary does, because he wants to be part of the team, and he's a hero.
So it's an amazing scene, and also you know what, I appreciate the fact that you actually don't see it happen. It literally just shows Spotswood's face, and then Gary goes down, and there's not even a reaction.
Nothing.
And it's like, okay, then let's go get cleaned up. I actually got it in my face. There's actually in that dialogue, there's like 4 or 5 banger lines which I've kept for the dialogue because I actually really love it. Then we've got Kim Jong-il's show. So I have 2 notes on this. This is actually the closest thing that's based on reality.
Okay.
Did Kim Jong-il so this is all true. Kim Jong-il was actually a complete cinephile. He loved movies. He once captured a director from South Korea to come to North Korea to make movies that he wanted to make. He actually put on these really big shows, and he specifically did it for foreign dignitaries to, like, they still do shows now, but apparently Kim Jong-il was actually involved. So he never actually sung, and he didn't kidnap people. He didn't kidnap foreign military. But apparently there are true stories of foreign diplomats coming and him putting on these shows like 100,000 dancers and like super intricate. And exactly what they show there, it's all these musicals about him being a great leader and how amazing North Korea is. So that's actually the closest thing in this that's based on reality.
I didn't know that.
Ridiculous shows. The other thing is, so so he takes Lisa and brings her next to him. Very Princess Leia in Star Wars thing. But do you notice her outfit?
No.
So she's dressed in a classic Asian dress, like the tight red thing around the neck. Did it remind you of anything?
Not off the top of my head, no.
So I think I thought this before, and it's one of those things, it hasn't been confirmed, but I think it looks like the dress worn by the woman at the beginning of Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. And
okay.
And it's not an exact replica, but there's a lot of references to movies like Indiana Jones in this. And
no, I can see that.
And so I said it can't be a coincidence.
No,
I thought.
I don't think any of it is a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I enjoy. I enjoy references like that. Speaking of references, Gary arrives. Once he goes through the gate, I think there's a reference to the Matrix because he has the cloak on
100%,
and he like pulls it off. He doesn't have as many guns as in the Matrix, but he definitely has them and starts shooting. And the lobby kind of looks a bit like the Matrix lobby.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, before that, Star Wars.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the Matrix one is hinted at.
Yes,
but the one before is a full on. He's wearing a Jedi cloak.
Yes,
and and I think he uses the hand. He literally, you will let me in.
And the guys are like, oh yeah, I believe it. Yeah, me too.
Which again is making fun of his he's such a good actor there.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the entrance reminds me a bit of the lobby in the Matrix, but I think the architecture mostly reminds me of Scarface's house.
Yes, I know you mean.
There's the stairwell going around and the black and the marble. So
definitely. Yeah.
Then he frees the team again. This time that's a Mission Impossible reference because he has the mask and everything.
Oh, he pulls a mask on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course he does. Yeah.
So he frees the team. Then we have the FAG versus Team America. It goes on for a little bit, but they basically just kill all the actors one by one.
The fight scene is brilliant though, because again, it just gets more and more extreme. How the actors die one by one just gets more and more graphic and over the top.
A bunch of them get their heads blown up. Susan Sarandon, I love when she almost fools Chris. He's like, no, she looks like she's in trouble. No, Chris, she's acting. Your powers are faded, Susan. And then she falls off. She crashes and gets blown up.
Yeah, someone gets set on fire. Was that Tim Robbins?
Tim Robbins. Yeah. Oh, this is that. So I put it in my quotes, but I'll say it here. So they start fighting with a canister of gas, and Tim Robbins gets covered in gas. And at the end of it, the Chris guy, who has been smoking the whole movie. And for me, I think unnecessary smoking in action movies, which is definitely another trope, is a bit annoying because it's not. But for me, the key is to have it be employed at one point.
Exactly.
Whether it's someone dies of cancer, which is less funny, or exactly this, when Tim Robbins is like, I'm going to get you. And then Chris says, you forgot one thing. I'm a smoker.
Yeah.
And throws it and blows it up. It actually reminds me, this is not a good movie, but, and actually if you've seen it, you might be the perfect person to do it with. One of my favorite stupid action movies, Triple X with Vin Diesel, where there's this character who's been smoking the whole time, who's a bad guy. And at one point he's hidden in a cave, and they're like, he's hidden in a cave with a sniper rifle, and he keeps shooting everyone. And then Vin Diesel comes and is like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, there's this guy. He's like, he's in a nest. We can't get him. And then he looks around and he sees a heat-seeking missile. And he goes, what's this? He's like, it's a heat-seeking missile. It won't be any good. He's like, yeah, it will. that motherfucker's smoking or something like that, and he shoots the heat-seeking missile and kills the guy with the cigarette.
First of all, I need to see. Yeah, it's like, oh, I do. Yeah, excellent.
So they kill the actors. I can't remember if it's before or after they kill the actors or during. And another one of my favorite references is I think we talked about earlier, the Kill Bill one.
That's so good.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
Then in the midst of that, Chris tells Gary his cat story about how he was raped by an actor from the Cats. Again, it's obviously a tragic story, but the way it ends is, and I was raped by Mr. Mustafali.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah,
that just sounds like a funny thing.
It's just too good.
Also, I noticed that this time, I feel like Gary really doesn't give a shit about the story because Chris is opening up and saying, yeah, but we're in the middle of trying to stop a terrorist attack.
So sure. Yeah.
I think they just keep cutting to him, and obviously he's a puppet, but he's just got this expression on his face.
That's so true. There's no empathy or anything. It's just, he was just raped by cats. That's it. Yeah, move on.
Then another thing I've written down is there's the countdown. The fight. That's actually a really funny bit when he's like, "I'm gonna set the bombs off in 5 minutes."
Yeah, under the trope.
Yeah, exactly. And I checked from the moment that he does it until he stops it. There's 6.5 minutes that goes on in the movie. I'm sure they didn't do that on purpose. They're like, we don't care. Yeah, it is longer.
They have the act off.
Yes,
and then when Gary has convinced everybody, when he out-acts Alec Baldwin,
that's when
then the audience turn on King Johnny, and then Lisa
impales him on the German guy's house.
So ridiculous, but so good.
I think they show the German. They show a bunch of the guests getting the invitations before, and they show the German guy, and it just starts on his spike, and it goes down. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Chekhov's spike. Yeah. So Gary wins that. Then Kim Jong-un gets killed. So they stop the bomb. Kim Jong-un becomes the cockroach that comes out and then flies off in a ship, which, as we said, is just another trope about opening up for sequels.
Yeah.
Which they were obviously never going to actually do one, but it was just me.
I meant to have a look. I meant to look. Was there ever a plan for a second?
So no. And as we'll talk about in technical things, literally Matt Stone and Trey Parker in every single interview then, they said, if you took my family hostage and said you kill them or I have to make another puppet movie, I'd say kill my family. Because they hated it. They drove them absolutely crazy. So yeah, they were never in a million years. No amount of money would have made them do another one of these. Another thing I love is it just ends. No, they lived happily ever after, just end credits. And then there's a long version of America Fuck Yeah, where you get the full lyrics. Because I've written it down for the songs later. The list of things that they say fuck yeah for are crazy. Let me pull it out now. So a short list of the things that they say America fuck yeah are McDonald's, Walmart, The Gap, baseball, NFL, rock and roll, the internet, slavery, Starbucks, Disney, World, porno, Valium, Reeboks, fake tits, sushi, Taco Bell, rodeo, Bed Bath & Beyond, Liberty, Wax Lips, the Alamo, Band-Aids, Las Vegas, Christmas, immigrants, Popeye, Democrats, Republicans, sportsmanships, and books.
Oh, it's so good.
Those are all the things that America stands for, according to them.
But that is stereotypical, man, Trey. Because the Book of Mormon. There's a scene, for anyone else has seen, like the musical Book of Mormon, which is absolutely incredible. Favorite thing I've ever seen on stage. There's a scene in there where it's like a spooky Mormon hell dream, and in there you've got all these evil characters. So like Gaddafi will be in there, Hitler, but then on the same stage, like the Pope or like Buddha will be there, and it's just that's similar. Like there's loads of things that are actually good.
Yeah, and then slavery.
Yeah, it's just so.
I mean, America was built on it. But yes, that's the story. I mentioned a lot of the references. So Star Wars, there's the bar scene.
Yeah.
There's the Jedi trick. I think that's it. Then we talked about Tarantino, the walking scene. Then the Valmorification to me is a reference to Face Off.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the Matrix is the lobby scene. There's also, I think it's later on with the actors, there's the jump scene where I think it's Chris and someone else, they jump up and it does the rotating.
Yeah, and that happens in or also at the very beginning where he has like the martial arts fight with the terrorists.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as clear-cut reference.
No.
It might be. But then if you ever wanted a 100% clear reference, at one point during the fight scene with the Thag versus Team America, someone says, "Come on, stop trying to hit me and hit me."
Yeah, it was so good. That's Samuel L. Jackson, I think, which is just genius. Yeah.
Because I think he was meant to play more. He could have played Morpheus at one point. I mean, he would have made a great Morpheus.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I said Lisa dresses Temple of Doom. I'm sure there are other. I think these are more homages than making fun of, but those are the big ones that stood out to me.
I think the more you say it, I think the dress it's got to be. Because
I'll put it up on the screen for people to decide, but yeah, it's pretty close. So let's talk about the characters for a bit. But I think, to be fair, this is the most unimportant part of the entire book. Really, what I've tried to do here is I've listed the main characters and I've listed what we know about them, and they're pretty thinly fleshed out. Right. So Gary is an actor.
Yeah. Great actor. He's a great
actor. He has trauma from his brother. That's like his whole personality. Yeah. And he's a horn dog. Yeah. He'll do anything to get laid.
He will never die.
Well, he's a liar too. Yeah. But that's literally all you know about him.
Exactly.
And
the main character.
He's the main character. And then, so I'll do this for all of them. But then I realized, I think because they're dolls, because I feel like maybe when there's an actor, you get more of a sense of them because they're a human being that's like doing something. And so they're more one-dimensional being puppets. But in terms of actual fleshing out of a character, they probably do as much with these characters as they do with a lot of in a lot of action movies, where you've got a dozen characters and you know 2 or 3 things about each of them, and you can literally feel like they filled in a spreadsheet. It's like, guys, we need 3 facts about them. It was like Joe. Okay, well, he's the team leader. He was a quarterback, and he's emotional. Loves Sarah. Clairvoyant.
Yeah.
Sweet. Really good with the machine gun. That's the other thing I think they said in the interview. Yeah, like, we gave them all these attributes like martial arts or clairvoyant, but really they just got around and was shooting people. Yeah. Actually, he didn't talk about that. I think it's one of those things you can either miss or find a bit annoying, but and then some watches you'll enjoy it. This last night, the fact that she keeps saying, I sense that, on saying the most obvious thing. I sense the sense of going down. Going down. I sense the you might be sad. Yeah. She does like 4 or 5 times. It's actually really funny. Then Chris's things is that he's angry, pissed off all the time. Martial arts expert. He smokes and was raped by Mr. Mistopheles. Those are the things we know about him.
Yeah.
Chris, Joe, and Gary, I think, are all voiced by Trey Parker.
Okay.
Gary and Joe, definitely. I did find sometimes with Gary, or maybe it was more with Gary and Joe, sometimes I felt like I was hearing Randy from South Park.
Yeah, 100%.
Because basically, it's only like 10% off his real voice.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, not in a bad way. It's actually quite funny to think of Randy in a situation. But then, so Lisa is voiced by an actress called Kristen Miller, who, did you know that they made, so Trey Parker and Matt Stone have made a bunch of really random shit out of the South Park, including this, but they made a sitcom called That's My Bush about the White House, made in George W. Bush.
Did not know that.
So she was in there. So she's an actual actress.
Okay.
But they obviously used her in this because they knew her from That's My Bush. So she's a psychology expert. And so she's a really shitty psychology expert because despite being that, she doesn't know that Joe loves her and doesn't know that Lisa's going to be jealous of her sleeping with Gary. Also, Lisa, bit of a slut.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
How long has her boyfriend been dead? A week?
Yeah.
2?
Does she really believe he's never going to die?
I mean, either she's a slut or she's an airhead so I was actually writing this and getting a bit annoyed about, actually, she is the most boring character in this.
Massively.
But then I realized, again, nothing's by accident. Yeah. It's obviously making fun of how thinly written the female love interest is in these action movies.
Completely.
So, I put most boring character, but reflection of how shallow love interests usually are. So, yeah.
So true.
Then, from worst to best, I don't know if I thought this before, but sometimes when you hear, so Spotswood, Trey Parker said is his favorite character because he has the best lines. I think with that in mind, I was like, yeah, he is pretty awesome.
He is. I mean, you're right. He is just awesome. So, I completely agree about the characters are thin. I think they all are.
Oh, you know nothing about Spotswood?
No, nothing. Literally nothing at all. He's just a mysterious old man who basically got M from,
and really wants to get his ducks.
Yeah, but I think the only character who has anything like backstory or anything about them is King Jong-il. I think he's the only one. His whole song goes on into kind of talks about kind of why he's doing what he's doing. He feels like he's misunderstood. He feels like he's smarter than everybody in the room.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought about that.
He
most fleshed out character.
He's the only fleshed out character in there. And he is the dictator based on a real person, which is, I just find mental.
So we'll come back to Spotswood then, but let's stay on Kim Jong-un. So I've got great villain.
A great villain. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's almost like he was made for that role. It's almost like he is an actual dictator. But yeah, great villain. He's just so evil. But he's so evil. He's the first time you see him, he's killing his translator. He then feeds hands to sharks.
Yeah.
You know, he
tortures people.
He tortures people
on the show.
Yeah, it's just so good. But you know,
and you know what? His motivation. I mean, again, it's a cliche. It's one of the most cliche motivations action movies that he wants to bomb the developed world so that everything's even out to be a third world. It's like, yeah, from his point of view, that makes sense.
You know, like,
why not?
You still have real films like that have a worse villain.
Oh, idea. Oh yeah,
all the time. But yeah, just only when I was kind of watching the most recently, I was like, he's the only character we know anything about. You know, that's it. Like, you know, and
which is better than a lot of action movies. A lot of action movies, I find the problem is that you don't understand why I actually think it's more important to understand why the villain is doing what they're doing than why the hero is trying to stop them, because that's usually quite evident.
Completely.
So obviously Kim Jong-il is done by Trey Parker using the same voice as the Chinese guy.
So good. Oh yeah.
My shitty one!
Oh, my shitty one. Yeah, I was trying to think of the quote. That is it. My shitty one.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't say that at one point. But then, Spotswood, obviously the women are done by other actresses because Trey and Matt don't do women. The guys are all done by Trey. But then Spotswood, they brought in someone. So for Spotswood and Intelligence, they brought in someone different, which I think is very important. So for Spotswood, they brought in a guy called Darren Norris, who's voiced over 400 characters in film and TV shows.
Okay, interesting.
And I think he's appeared once or twice on South Park, so my guess is he's probably friends with them. But yeah, his voice is so important, and they were saying one of the reasons why it was important to have someone different is because you need to actually be taking him seriously for the humor to work, so you can't be hearing Matt or Trey doing it. And so getting someone with such a distinctive voice, his voice is 50% of the jokes.
Yeah,
like the Suck My Cock wouldn't be funny if he had like a high-pitched voice or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's just brilliant. And yeah, he's supposed to embody, you know, governments and the boss and and that sort of archetype of character.
That was another.
Speaking of him, here's one that I tried to figure something out and there really wasn't much. His driver, Baxter. So I asked ChatGPT about this. I was like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
So the woman in them. So it's clearly a female doll and they just put a mustache on it.
Oh my God, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so the best I could come up with is it's not a specific reference to anyone, but it's a gag about a lot of the time, usually we're Cold War action movies. There's sort of this mysterious driver, sidekick, assistant, secretary.
Okay.
And often it could be, and often it's been like a woman or a woman who looks a bit manly and stuff like that. And it's true, the whole gray outfit, it reminds you a bit of it doesn't look like him, but it's reminiscent of the guy with the hat in Dr. No. Like, character who doesn't speak, but is a bit scary and a bit spooky.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't know anything about him.
No.
But yeah, it's just a funny, an unresolved visual joke is how it's been described. Then Intelligence, which is, again, it's completely unnecessary, but it's just stupid and funny. And so apparently, have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Yes.
So I actually haven't yet, but it's meant to be a riff on the HAL 9000 in that.
Yeah.
Is that track?
Yeah, it does completely.
Yeah.
I mean, now you've said it, definitely. But yeah, again, it's just a supercomputer that actually predicts pretty basic things.
Yeah. And gets things wrong.
And gets things like very bad intelligence.
And so it's voiced by a guy called Phil Hendry, he's a famous radio host, but he's a satirist. He's famous for sounding calmly authoritative while saying insane things, which perfect kind of thing.
Works. Yeah.
So Trey directed it. He co-wrote it with Matt and another woman that we'll talk about later. So Trey voiced Gary Joe Carson.
Yeah.
I don't think. So maybe he doesn't do Chris because he's not on this list. He does Kim Jong-il, Hans Blix, and a bunch of the actors, and then Matt Stone does a bunch of the actors. But it does seem like he was definitely involved, but Matt co-wrote it and did a bunch of the actors, but he didn't direct it. Definitely seemed like he was a lot less involved than he was in South Park.
Passion project for Trey. It's
yeah. I can imagine him just going. He was like, "Man, I'll help you out, but I just don't want all the responsibility of being a top dog."
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to talk about the actors that are in this, as in that are made fun of, now is probably a good time. So, do you have a favorite?
So my favorite is Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Has to be. And yeah, I remember you probably got the same as well, but like the reason he comes across as he does, just when they made the puppet, he just looks disabled. Yeah. And that's it. So because of that, they then gave him this stupid voice and all he says is Matt Damon. And I just thought, that's just brilliant.
The one thing I've seen the same thing as you. The one thing I wasn't clear about was whether it was Matt Damon's face that was melted, and so they decided to do him, or if it was a melted face, and then they saw who has the funniest name to say. I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
Because they were like, Samuel Jackson. No, that doesn't work. Unless you would ever do Samuel Jackson.
No, it's like,
yeah,
do cool.
Like, I guess Tim Robbins.
Tim
But yeah, but
Might have
I mean,
worked, yeah.
you never. It's a it's a chicken and egg thing now. You don't know if it's funny because we've seen it or if it was just intrinsically funny.
It just works.
But have you seen the Matt Damon reaction to it?
So I think he likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does, and which I think is great because I've seen that Sean Penn does not find it funny at all.
No.
And I think, what better way for Matt and Trey to win than knowing that they took it well?
Massively.
Yeah, you have to go down the route because I think Alec Baldwin took it well as well. So Alec Baldwin, Matt, you just have
George Clooney apparently was a personal friend of theirs. I saw somewhere when they first started up, he let them crash at his place or something. But he's always come out. I think because they got in a lot of trouble around the South Park movie when it was nominated for the Oscars, and he basically was like, "No, we need people like them are important. Satire is important. We're rich and famous. People are allowed to make fun of us." But yeah, Sean Penn took it really badly. Apparently, he sent a letter to them before the movie even came out because he got wind about it. But the thing is, I think by being cool about it, George Clooney and Matt Damon sort of prove that they're not the characters that are being portrayed. Whereas by reacting the way he did, Sean Penn shows that he's exactly the sort of pretentious douchebag.
Completely. And actually, ever since then, I've I see Sean Penn. Yes, the first thing that comes to mind. I'm like, well, you're obviously a bit of an arsehole.
Yeah.
You just got to laugh at yourself. I mean, you're rich, you're famous, you're successful. Like, Jesus, take a breath. But yeah, the Matt Damon being, a bit simple is just so good.
How many times do you think he says it in the movie?
See, I don't think it's too much. I think it's probably only I reckon it's less than 10.
Yes, 5.
Is it 5? Is that it? Yeah.
Is it once when he's introduced? Then I think once when he's at the end, and I think he says it 3 times maybe during the fight. But yeah, I counted it 5 times.
Okay, yeah. Which, again, that is, in 5 times he said his name, that has stood the test of time,
Some of them have obviously aged well, like Matt Damon, George Clooney, Samuel L. Jackson, but someone like Liv Tyler, who obviously was in Armageddon. Yeah. So and she was in The Lord of the Rings. But other than that, it's like she hasn't been in anything big in 15 years. And there's a couple of people in there that I think I recognize their name vaguely, but I couldn't tell you anything they've been in. But they were obviously a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think 1 or 2 of them it's not because they were famous they were put in there. It was because they actually were on TV during the War on Terror talking about stuff. I think it's Janine Garofalo, something like that.
Yeah,
she's in there, and she actually says at one point, I think during one of the meetings, she's like, "Our job as actors is to read things in newspapers and then talk on TV as if there are opinions." And that's a real reference because she went on TV and she just basically talked about a news article that she had read.
I mean, that is so poor, isn't it? But that was actually one of my questions: is how did they decide on the actors that they used? And there we go.
I think combo of people who were like Sean Penn and her who had actually been on TV, and then they just took a bunch of famous people like Alec Baldwin and Matt Damon. Yeah. All right, now we're going to move on to the script, which is, there's just so many. I was going to say the most important part, but no, the visuals in the script, and the script includes the music. Perfect puzzle. So, as I mentioned before, it was written by Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and Pam Brady. She was one of the original writers on South Park, wrote on there from 97 to 99. She co-wrote the South Park movie with them, so she's part of the brain trust.
Yeah.
She's written a bunch of stuff. Some better than others. She also co-wrote a Hot Rod.
Briefly. Yeah.
The Lonely Islands movie. So they spent 2 years working on the script. Some of the movies they studied were Alien, Top Gun, and SWAT. No. Have you seen SWAT?
I have seen SWAT.
Have you seen it many times?
No, once or twice.
So I literally had the DVD and watched it over and over as a kid. Me and my friend went dressed as SWAT officers at Halloween. It's exactly this. It's a dumb action movie, but at the time it was so good. Also though, it has a great cast. It's got Colin Farrell is the main actor. It's got Samuel L. Jackson and Jeremy Renner and Michelle Rodriguez. That's like 4 of the 5.
Wow.
I think LL Cool J.
Yeah.
So everyone in it is it's an all-star cast. I'm going to have to do it on this one day because I love it. But anyway, it's not a huge movie, but it was just, I think it came out in 2003, but it was just funny that was one of the influences. Initially, they just wanted to recreate a Jerry Bruckheimer movie with puppets, but that was too problematic. So we got this absolute masterpiece. So Iain, you're going to tell us your quotes from least awesome to most awesome, and I'll tell you where they rank for me.
Okay, so my first one is quite obscure, so I'll be surprised if you got this on your list.
I hope I do.
But it's when he is trying to convince the guards at the Blue Door Tavern to go in, and they're getting more and more agitated, and the guns are rattling, and he acts, and he pulls it out of the bag, and he's like, "Durka, Durka, Durka," and the guards, they look at each other, and they go, "Oh, Durka, Durka, Durka." And it's just so stupid. I just think that old Durka, Durka, Durka is just something that has just stayed with me for a long, long time.
So just the Durka, Durka.
Just the way they look at each other, he's acted, and they go, "Oh, Durka, Durka, Durka." And then they let him in the door. So that,
Yeah, I mean, the Durka Durka in itself is very iconic, but yeah, I get that. I think it's up right after that when he's talking to the bosses and he's trying to convince them, and he says about how my village was bombed by the, and then so that whole bit is awesome. But it's the end bit that I have as a quote. It was on that day that I put a jihad on them, and if you don't believe it, then you better kill me now because I'll put a jihad on you too.
literally, that is the next one I got written. That is the next one. You know, that whole speech is just so good.
And it's good, funny, but in the context of that world, you're like, I mean, he is kind of convincing.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I believe he was a terrorist. The next one on my list is the Suck My Cock Spotswood, which we had
The first one,
the first one in the car.
Okay,
you know, he is basically a joke, and you know, he's convinced Gary he's not trying to, you know, sexually assault him in the car. And then he says, yes, it is a nice car. Now suck my car. And I just think for the reasons I mentioned earlier about kind of what that, you know, the moment in school where it was then shut off the TV. But that in itself is just so good because the way the film is, he could be being serious. And obviously later on in the film, he is serious. But again, I just think that line in itself is just so funny.
So I have the line before they get in when he says, oh, I get what's going on. Actually, that's the one where you really hear Randy's voice, which is, oh, I see what's happening. You need me to put your dick in my mouth. But then when he goes, please, Gary, I'm not from Hollywood. I'm not going to fuck your mouth and my time is extremely valuable.
Exactly.
I love that one.
So good. So the next one I've got in mind, which is I've got as my next favorite quote, although the scene is my favorite scene of the film, is, and we mentioned it already, but the woman on the balcony.
You gave up on,
and she says, "You gave up on life, didn't you?" Still
with an Irish accent. Right?
So I'm so, because I never know what accent to do it in. I think it's Irish.
I think it's
that's the way that I do it.
The trope is this New York thing of people, like you say, doing their laundry out the window and screaming at people. And I think often it's like immigrants. I think she is meant to be Irish.
Yeah, completely. So the next one of mine, which is my second favorite line in the film, is "You gave up on life, didn't you?" But it's just because it's just everything we mentioned already. It's so ridiculous. She's out there beating a towel, and you know, and it's still something that I reference now daily. Which is so good. One
of the ones right at the beginning that I read, this is one of my favorites. It's a cliche, but it's also a callback. Is, "Hey, terrorist, terrorize."
Oh, it's so good. And I think
it's used in the trailer very effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? This is one I was going to skip, but I just love. So, as I said, as a Frenchman, at the end of the French scene, when he goes, "Bonjour, everyone. Don't worry, everything is bon."
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And
it's that sentence with parroting destroyed. Everyone's
just like looking around, like, and also like just the lad at the beginning singing "Fair Jacques."
Yeah,
it's just, you know, it's not really a quote, but again, it's something that I just always think of. And when we went to Paris recently, I was thinking like, "Fair Jacques," you know, because of Team America.
Here's the thing I forgot to say, I think when we went through the scene, when you haven't watched this movie for a while, and obviously you remember that it's a bit crude, but I love when you put it on and you see the background, which is handwritten. And it's definitely happened to me once when I hadn't watched it in 5 years, like, wait, is this how crude it is? That this is how bad the marionettes are and how the background is? And then it pulls back, it's like, oh no, it really gets you with that.
So good.
It's such a rewatch gag.
Yes.
So then we talked about it would be 9/11 times 100, 1,000, 2,536. Then they're not my favorite lines, but they're just funny. The Chris threats, "If you betray us, I'll rip your fucking balls off and stuff them in your ass. That way, the next time you shit all over your balls." And then the other one is, "The next time you pull a stunt like that, I'll drip 2 holes through your dick so that when you pee, it shoots out in all directions."
I mean, it's so good.
Then there's, "Remember, there's no I in Team America." Yes, there is. Again, Chris, G's a titty fucking cry.
Yes, thank you.
Then I've mentioned I'm a smoker. So we'd mentioned Panama, no me gusta. That sounds hilarious.
Has to be in there.
So I've got my 2 favorites, which just stand above all the others. But then there's we talked about it, the one where he actually does suck his dick.
Yeah.
There's so much. So it's a full paragraph, but I'm going to hit all the elements. It starts with, "Remember when we first met, you were a simple Broadway actor, afraid to get in my limo because you thought that I wanted you to perform oral sex on me." I just love remember when we first met. It was a week ago. That, again, is it's dumb, but that just really gets me because they could have phrased it any other way, but to make out like, remember years and years ago. Yeah. So that, and then he says, "All right, I'll trust you, but only if you perform oral sex on me." And then, "Are you serious?" Gotta be kidding. Yeah, look. Yeah. And even that, the marionette, look, and the hand, and you can just feel that someone has moved the arm manually. "This is my seriousness. This isn't about sex, Gary. It's about trust." Yeah. And then, God, and then these are all. So he doesn't say them in the same order. There's like conversation. But he says all these things. "Okay, let's do it. Yeah, it looks clear. Okay, go. Okay, let's do it. Here we go, and go.
What?
He says all of those things.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He literally turns around and says, okay, goes a bit and go.
I'll make sure nobody's watching. Which, that's the thing. If that's what makes it like even funnier, is the fact that he clearly is enjoying it and really wants it. So yeah, I love that whole bit. So my top two, number two is gonna have to be the only if you promised me you'll never die.
So
You know that I can't promise you that. If you did that, I would make love to you right now. And then he says,
I promise I will never die. It's just so good.
it hits everything. It's making fun of, again, the romance in these action movies. It's making fun of like the women's like, oh, if only you could like promise that I would do it. It's making fun of what a horn dog he is. That
Completely.
he was like, oh, so all I have to do is lie to you. Because he literally says, not to overanalyze it, but he says, you know I can't promise you that. Because if she just said, if you told me that you would never die, I would sleep with you right now, it would be bad enough for him to say it. But it's just the fact that he's just acknowledged that no one could promise that. And it's like, yeah, no, but sex.
Sure, you know.
And again, the way it's edited, it's like just the perfect amount of his brain thinking, but fast enough that it's like, I promise I will never die.
That was not even a hint, not of doubt.
Yeah. So that's great. And then the best one, probably not for everyone, but this is mine. Okay, a limousine that can fly. Now I've seen everything. Really? Have you seen a man eat his own head? No. So you haven't seen everything.
I mean, just come on, round of applause, because that is some scene that and again, like, you know, as we sit here now, 20 years on, still something that is like, we probably mention that regularly.
So this brings me very nicely to one of my new segments, which is everyday movie references. It doesn't have to be a quote, but it's something that when you see it or hear it in your everyday life, you think of a particular movie. And for me, every time someone says, you could be in conversation, it could be another movie, someone says, oh, I've seen everything, I always think, and Danita could attest to this, if she ever says it, I always say, have you ever seen a man eat his own head? And now she gets that reference.
Yeah, now she gets it.
So, and another example I always give is, for me, anytime deja vu is brought up, I think of The Matrix.
Of course.
So my question to you, Iain, is what are some everyday movie references of yours?
Okay, so I have one from Team America, which I've mentioned to death on this podcast, so I'm going to just mention it again. Is the woman, when she says in the Irish accent, you gave up on life, didn't you? Whenever somebody is going through a bad time, somebody at work is saying they've had enough, that is the first thing that comes into my head now, and it just works. And I almost have to kind of forget, because I could be hearing something quite, depressing, and someone can be going through a really hard time, and I'm thinking of this puppet on a balcony cleaning a carpet. So that is one that I still quote regularly, but think of all the time. It's almost like an initial reaction.
Everyday movie reference.
Exactly. So the other one is very kind of sports related, which again I think of all the time, especially kind of when I watch my football team. Usually not do very well. Is in Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Everyone's seen it, but if you haven't, there's this scene where this crazed Uruk-hai, this monster, is running through with basically a stick of dynamite.
Oh yeah, in the Two Towers.
Yeah, in the
blow up the
exactly. So there's a little gate, and he jumps through, and he basically blows up and brings down the wall. But just before then, this elf, Legolas, he is trying to bring it down. You've got this man next to him, Aragorn. He's like, Legolas, bring him down, bring him down. So whenever I'm watching sport and the team are running to our goal, I still say, and I stand in the football now and I say this to the point where people are probably sick of me saying it, and I'm shouting, bring him down, bring him down. And it's just stayed with me forever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that one.
Yeah, they are the two that came to mind.
I've got quite a few, but another one I thought of is whenever I see cranberry juice, I think of The Departed.
Oh,
and Leo orders it,
that's such a good.
and the guy goes, "Are you on your period?"
Exactly. Yeah, so good.
Which I later found out is an actual thing that women take for UTIs when they're on their period. Hence the reference. But yeah, I'll let you see it in the store and be like, The Departed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that concludes today's segment of everyday movie references. So we talked about the speech, the dicks, pussy, assholes. So do you think the speech kind of makes sense?
Do you know what? I think it makes more sense now. Then now I watched it again, and I'm like, actually, it kind of does work.
I think that the basic premise basically is that there are assholes who shit on everything, and then you need dicks to fuck the assholes, but the dicks can get a bit over enthusiastic, let's say, and so you need the pussies to calm them down, but then the pussies, if they get too close to the asshole, they're
only
they become assholes.
Yeah.
And so it's very simplistic and childish. I'm not saying we should dictate foreign policy based on this, but for a movie that is so stupid and they could have said anything and it would have been funny, I think it kind of holds up if you actually stop and think about it.
Definitely, because I think you got the dicks are clearly Team America, the Film Actors Guild, fags are the pussies, and then King John Neal is the arsehole. But it's good because Alec Baldwin, there's a quote in it where it's, if a pussy gets fucked too much, it becomes an arsehole.
Yeah.
And, that is kind of what happens to Alec Baldwin. He becomes an arsehole. So actually, I think it works on several different levels, which is mad when you're talking about something so ridiculous.
But then I think also you got to he's just saying that to convince them. So maybe it makes a little bit of sense, but it is also it is just an actor saying whatever he needs to get what he wants. So very superficial, but yeah, it's funny. Now we're going to move on to the production, which I think is the most interesting part of this because you don't really think about this the first 40 times you watch it. But this movie was extremely hard to make. This section is going to be brought to us by our sponsor, Concave Brand Tracking. So if you're ever interested in analyzing the value of product placement in movies, make sure to contact us at info@concavebt.com. But so before we go into the details of the production, I like to say, do you think there are any brands in Team America World Police?
That is a good question. Well, you mentioned the French brand.
I did.
So that is probably... Would there be any others? I don't think there would be.
There's actually a lot. There's almost 50 real brands in this movie. So there's 11 car brands. The cars that the limousine is based on a Lamborghini limousine.
Yeah.
In Panama, there's a Ford that actually has Ford written on it that gets drowned out. Yeah. The motorcycle he rides is based on a Harley. Now you may argue vehicles need to be based on something. So obviously they just use that. Does that really count as product placement? Yeah, it does. They're not all over the movie, but there's, as I say, close to 50. The bar in the base, there's a whole wall covered in liquor.
There is, of course.
And there's actually a close-up on them. So they have a bunch of brands there. They have Jose Cuervo, they have Johnny Walker, they have Hypnotic, which was a brand that was big in the 90s in rap videos. There's Tanqueray, Bombay Sapphire, Courvoisier, Grand Marnier, all of those. But then, so that's probably the second biggest concentration. The first is in Times Square.
Of course.
The shot of Times Square. There's Marlboro, Budweiser, Coca-Cola, Cadillac, Samsung, Morgan Stanley. So yeah, overall, there's not a huge volume. They're not on screen for a long time. But yeah, there's a lot. There's more brands in this than a lot of live action.
That's really interesting.
So now more onto the more serious stuff. So have you ever heard of the Kyoto Brothers?
No.
The Kyoto Brothers are a trio of movie animators. So there's 3 of them. And they became famous by doing stop motion animation.
Okay.
I actually thought they'd worked on a bunch of famous stuff, but actually their 2 biggest things are this, and most recently, last Christmas, we did Elf with Sunita, and they did all the stop action animation on that. So they were a really big part of that because the movie was meant to be an homage to Rankin Bass. Also, if you haven't watched that yet, and it's near Christmas, go watch our Elf episode with Sunita. It's really good. But yeah, we talked about the Kyoto Brothers in that. So that was a year before, that came out a year before this. But this is, if you go on Wikipedia and you put up the Kyoto Brothers, one of the big things they're famous for is for doing Team America World Police.
Oh, brilliant.
Obviously, there was a whole crew of puppeteers involved, but they were basically the head guys who managed it all. So they helped design them, they helped figure out how to move them and just sort everything out. But the amount of detail that went into these were not just puppets. Their heads were fully animatronic. So
yes.
Do you know how their voices work? So yeah, I'll put it in the behind the scenes in the video version. These heads are basically mini computers with a bunch of little things that move all of their heads. This is then linked back to a remote control that can move the head that can move the head using the controls in it, which is then linked to a computer, which basically you could either speak or input voice, and based on the voice, it would recreate the movement in the head. So they could have Trey Parker having recorded something and they would just play that at the right time, or he could just record it then and there, hence the improvisation. So that's just moving the head. Then the strings, as I said, there was 8 to 10 strings per puppet, sometimes up to 18, 20 puppets on scene, and all of them needed 1 to 2 people above to move them, and then 1 or 2 people below. So you just imagine these sets with people all over the place, like the Paris one. The Paris set was 70 feet by 90 feet, which the closest thing I could find is that's bigger than an entire basketball court. So that's how they built Paris.
Brilliant.
One important note is that in there they show the Eiffel Tower falling onto the Arc de Triomphe right next to it, and the Louvre, which is right next to it. And they explained, which I think is sometimes you think people are just blagging it, but they explained we weren't never trying to recreate what Paris actually looked like. We were trying to recreate how Americans think Paris is. And it's like, yeah, Americans would definitely be like, yeah, these are the two things.
That's good.
Another really funny one is, so you know the Egypt scene is meant to be in Cairo, right?
Yeah.
This one is one of the throwaway shots. So when they're doing the chase, they shoot a missile and they destroy, you know, the Egyptian temple with the 4 Ramses, the temple of Ramses.
Yeah, nowhere near Cairo.
13 hours away from Cairo.
But it's so good. But again, Americans probably wouldn't even blink an eye.
Not.
Yeah.
I mean, even me, I had to double check it. But yeah, so just stuff like that on the sets is hilarious. And thinking of these sets, as we mentioned, the detail, the attention to detail on the sets. So the croissant sidewalk,
Incredible.
all the different storefronts, all the different characters, all of the costumes, the amount of detail when you look. So just for a set, you've got to have people to build the sets. You've got to have the puppeteers to populate it. You've got to have the costume designers who make the costumes for all these fucking 2 feet. They have to make everything from scratch because they're having 2 feet puppets. So you can't even take children's clothes. You have to create everything. Every accessory had to be created from scratch to be the perfect size. And it was really expensive. Apparently, they gave the example you find everywhere is that the Uzis cost $1,000 each to make them.
Wow. Okay. I mean,
that's more expensive than a real Uzi.
That is, no wonder it cost 30 million.
Yeah, exactly. You wonder because the money wasn't going to actors or VFX, but it obviously was going to like all of this detail. Another really funny thing is that there's a bunch of hidden real objects in the costume that actually give you a sense of scale. Have you noticed any of them?
Oh, no. They can think of it as like a watch, but no.
No, the watches, because the watches have to be really small. No, so these are things, Team America, in the middle of their belts, they all have coins.
Oh, okay.
So that shows you, so that's like a quarter.
Yeah.
And so if you think that that's a quarter is the size of a belt buckle, it gives you an idea of the scale.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of other things. So the coin in belts is the most visible one. In the background of North Korea, there's a bunch of Chinese takeout boxes that are used to make houses. I think it must be in Egypt, there's dollar bills that are used to make palm leaves on the trees. Yeah. I don't know who this is. I saw it in a behind the scenes. It's not one of the main characters, but maybe it's a terrorist or someone who's got a bunch of kit on him and he's got nail clippers just hanging on him as if that's a weapon. And yeah, there's just a bunch of like hidden stuff like that, which is just really funny to...
There's one that I, again, didn't know until I had done a bit of research. But in Panama, like there's like a few like plastic palm trees. All the other foliage in there are cannabis plants. Because
I didn't know that.
So and I never knew. Again, someone who's watched the film countless times. Like, but obviously they're massive like potheads, aren't they? They smoke weed all the time, and then you watch it back. You're like, oh my god, yeah. But it's all of the foliage in Panama are cannabis plants.
Wow.
It's so good.
Yeah, I have to look into that. But going back to the puppets, so we talked about how it was based on Thunderbirds, and Matt and Trey, they thought it would actually be quite easy to do this, and then as they started doing it, they realized how excruciatingly hard. They say that sometimes it could take a day to get 7 seconds of just getting like 2 characters walking in the right direction. As I said, they said they would rather die than ever make one of these movies again. And that their respect for Jerry Anderson just went through the roof because they said, how did this person make 32 episodes of this? As I said, 26 hours. But one of the keys is, in that, there were really long scenes of just talking, which they said was why it was boring.
Yeah.
And there isn't that much action, whereas here they did lots of action. So they probably got as much action into this 1 hour and a half than there was in 5 or 6 hours of that.
Easily. Yeah.
But they still are like, it's crazy that this person made, because it was across 2 seasons. This person made it and was like, yeah, let's do more of this.
Bizarre. Yeah.
So I mentioned about these, there were 100 sets. They had 3 units filming for almost a year, because you can imagine they had a big warehouse where we'll work on Paris there, we'll work on Egypt there. And because I'm sure there's just a lot of setting up time. So they were probably just going around them all. Oh, here's some crazy facts. The cinematographer for this is the same guy who made The Matrix.
Oh, yeah, that's so good. That is so good.
Apparently they I don't know if he contacted them or they contacted him as on a whim, but basically they said, you're probably not going to want to, the exact word was sully your career by doing this. And everyone who worked on this was obviously huge South Park fans. And he was like, I absolutely want to sully my career with this. And apparently he said he was tired of using green screen for everything. So the idea of doing stuff actually practically, which was obviously painstakingly hard, but he was like really up for it. The pyrotechnician, so if the person for all the explosive worked on Independence Day and Terminator 2.
I mean, that is so good, isn't it?
And it's one of the reasons why it's such a good movie is because this isn't just a bunch of, idiots who just had fun. They had really talented, skilled people. Obviously, great writers, great cinematographer, great puppeteers, all of that. And that's this movie, let's be honest, we haven't said it yet. This movie could have been awful. It could have been absolute garbage on every level. If one bit didn't work, I think the whole movie falls apart.
Exactly.
But it's just perfectly stacked, being entertaining. The story works. The characters are like just funny enough.
Yeah.
The script is obviously brilliant. The execution is just like perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I actually do think that the puppets, if you compare to Thunderbirds, the puppets are much better, and they do look a lot better. Their mouths, apparently the lip syncing initially was too good, and they said it was a bit creepy, so they actually kind of slowed it down or just made it so that the mouths moved in rhythm, but maybe they don't actually make the same shape that you a bit like on South Park, which is funny sometimes when stuff is too realistic. So absolutely brilliant execution of their vision.
Yeah, definitely.
So now the best part of the production is the music. So I think this movie would probably be good if the music was fine, but the music, as we both said, is probably the best part.
Yeah.
So we're now going to go through. So I've counted 7 songs that have actual lyrics, because there are a bit that are just kind of like theme tunes in the background. Have you got 7 as well?
I have done my favorite 4.
Okay, that's fine. How about you start with your 4th and we'll work our way up to your 1st?
Okie dokie. So my 4th favorite song in this is the sad version of America, Fuck Yeah.
So I grouped America Fuck Yeah as one, but that's fair.
Yeah. So I just think because it's such a ridiculous song, and then they make it twice as ridiculous than it already is by doing it in a sad way.
America Fuck Yeah.
And like, you know, they could have easily just done a new song. But you know, there's a sort you know, we'll just do this one slowed down with a sad voice. And that part of the film as well, it just brings it all together. You know, they're obviously gonna fail on their mission. The actor's gone. They've got a sad song.
Which again is a classic beat in any movie, is like everything, all hope is lost.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so it is my 4th favorite.
So my 4th favorite, which I know is going to be higher for you, is Freedom Isn't Free.
Yeah.
This 4th.
Yeah.
I just think it's just a great mockery of the over patriotic, and just that line, freedom isn't free. It costs a hefty. That's one of those lines I have stuck in my head.
Always. Yeah. For the last 20 years, it's been in there. Like, you know, yeah. So yeah, I'll come on to where it is for me.
Yeah. 3.
3 I've got, We Need a Montage. It's just so good. You know, it is so on the nose about, you know, because it's the build up to it. He's just gone down on Spotswood, and he says to him, "It's just one problem, you know. I need to train or something." He said, "You know, we don't have time," and he's like, "You leave that to me." And then they do this whole song about how ridiculous montages are, but while they are doing a montage.
Yeah, that's what I love, is it's so meta, of like, it's explaining how montages work. Even the end, and at the end, Lord, we're gonna go slow down. Yeah, just like, maybe you don't even like more time has passed. So yeah. And you actually, especially when you watch as a kid, because obviously you know what a montage is, but you never actually thought about why montages work. And it's like, you show him getting slightly better at something, in every shot we're gonna have a montage.
And it's just, the song itself is funny. But then, you know, but then the
visuals.
Yeah, the visuals of it and everything, as he gets slightly better in each scene, it's just eeriness.
This is gonna be hard for you without seeing it, but you know he's on a treadmill at one point.
Yes.
With electrodes on him. Is that a reference to 50 Cent in the Club?
Do you know what?
I think it is.
It might be.
I was Googling it and I couldn't find it anywhere. And people say, I asked ChatGPT and it said, oh, that song was quite popular at the time. But it's so specific.
Yes.
It's training on a treadmill with electrodes on you. That's 50 Cent.
I think it is. It's either 50 Cent or it's just the most typical thing they could think of from training. You know what I mean?
I think it's become, like in the F1 movie, they actually showed them doing something like that. But I think it's become a cliche.
So in 2001, I don't know how many times I would have seen that when the film came out. 2004, sorry.
Because In the Club came out in January 2003, so they would have been filming it. Well, I'm going with it. But yeah, Montage is my 2nd favorite.
Nice. Yeah, so number 2 for me is Pearl Harbor Sucks, which we haven't really spent any time talking.
So I got that 3rd. So I've got Montage 2nd and Pearl Harbor Sucks, the end of an act, 3rd. So we just got those 2 switched. Yeah, so that one, when I rewatched it a few weeks ago, I messaged you. You expect to have America Fuck Yeah or even Montage stuck in your head. And I was like, Iain, why if I have the Pearl Harbor Sucks just a little bit more than I assumed?
But that's what I mean, like the songs themselves. I mean, you know, these are people who have got a number 1 song. Like, you know, the South Park.
They were nominated for an Oscar.
They were nominated again. Chocolate Salted Balls was number 1 in this country mental. These people have got pedigree, and the songs themselves are good enough to stay in your head 20 years.
They remind me a lot of The Lonely Island. Obviously different style, but it's great beats with then amazing lyrics that are, you can enjoy just like singing, but then if you actually listen to them, a couple of these I went in through the actual lyrics, and I was like, I actually, the one I've got last is Only a Woman.
Yes.
Because it's not bad, but it's the one I'm least passionate about. And yet I went into the lyrics, I thought, but this is just genius. Yeah, some of the lyrics are, you're around, you're right here, so you'll do. I want to tell you how much I love you, but it simply isn't true. And he multiple times it says basically, only a woman, as long as you're a woman, it'll be okay. And then at the end, and it's 4 a.m. and I'm on my 5th tab of E. That's the only time I don't even care if you're a woman.
I mean, come on.
I was like, well, maybe, but then every song has got brilliant lyrics like that, isn't it?
And that's what I mean. Like that for me, on another day, could be number 1.
Yeah,
it hasn't made my top 4.
Yeah,
but that could be my number 1 because it's so good. But Pearl Harbor, for me, it was either ever going to be number 1 or number 2 because it is just so unnecessary. Like they've done an entire song just based on how much Pearl Harbor was a shit film. It adds nothing to the story. It's purely just like, okay, we need to do a song here. Let's just take the piss out of a film that we hated. And nobody gets off. Like, Ben Affleck, he comes,
Cuba Gooding Jr. comes across.
Actually, he comes Oscar Wilde. Like he should have had a bigger part according to the film. Michael Bay missed the mark. It's just, you almost like, the first time I watched the film, I remember thinking, it almost sounds like they're talking about Pearl Harbor. Like, why would they be talking about Pearl Harbor?
And, you mean the actual event of a movie?
Well, no, the actual song. Like, why would they be singing a song about Pearl Harbor? Like, that has had nothing to do with this film. But it's clearly just that, just because they hated the film that much. They did an entire song on it. So that was my number 2.
And number 1?
Number 1 was, I've got it listed here as What Would You Do? But I think it is Freedom Isn't Free. Yeah. Which again, the song itself, lyrically, is probably, for me, the strongest song in the film. You've done the singing already, but also like freedom's like a buck 05.
Yeah,
like, come on, that's such a good line. And when it's like coupled with him walking down and looking at the graves and like feeling all sad and like reminiscent and stuff, I just think at the time of the film and the lyrics and everything else, it's just my favorite song.
Yeah, I can't fall. There's no wrong answer with this. But yeah, my favorite is America Fuck Yeah, because it's cliche. I mean, it's the obvious answer, but it's just hard to argue with it. And it's punchy. The tune's great, and then the line, so lick my butt and suck on my butt.
I mean, come on.
And then the full version that obviously I read out all the things in it is just awesome.
Yeah, I must admit, I'd forgotten about the extended.
Well, because it's only in the credit, I think, that it goes fully. I think I was hearing it, I was like, I'm going to have to look up the full list. Yeah. So then the least favorite I had Only a Woman, so it's 7th. Then it's 6th, I Am So Lonely, which is great.
And it could have been number 1 for me as well.
I think it's just, I looked up Lisa's phone number on her card. Yeah, if it was a real phone number, and it came up on some random forum from years ago. And someone in it, they basically said that apparently in movies they always use fake phone numbers because someone once put a real one and then got sued about it. But in that, someone said but Team America is a shit movie anyway. And then everyone was just sort of like piling onto and someone who is like, yeah, well, I just remember everyone singing I'm So Lonely all the time and how annoying that became. I can imagine the sort of movie that if you didn't get it and everyone else around you loved it at the time, you must have absolutely grown to hate it. And then at 5, I had Everyone Has AIDS, which is, I think it's more impactful because it's so early in the film. So it's like, oh, this is how this movie is going to be.
Definitely. And again, like, I feel like there is more, because you don't really hear much of the Everyone Has AIDS song. I think that's probably a verse or 2, and that's it. There's more to, I'm sure. They could probably do like a 3-minute song on that with all their ideas, for sure.
I think it probably is one of the longer ones because it is meant to be, he starts and he ends, whereas all the others are
that is true actually. But I think, because I was thinking of that and I was thinking, does it make my top 4, top 5? And I just think maybe it's just too early.
Yeah. And it gets funny, but I don't think the lines are as good.
No.
But then there are some great ones. Yes. So, Iain, this takes us nicely to our recap.
The film is brilliant. It's hilarious. The songs are fantastic. I think, thankfully, watching it again as a fully fledged adult, it hadn't lost anything. In fact, there's probably things that I'd forgotten, which I still find hilarious. For me personally, it's my favourite comedy of all time. It's my possibly my favourite ever cinema experience.
Wow.
Probably neck and neck with Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. But as a comedy, I've never laughed so much the first time I watched it. It absolutely stands the test of time. Overall, it makes my top 5 films of all time. Definitely. It's floating between Jurassic Park, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, Team America, probably depending on what sort of mood I'm in. It's between those, either kind of second or third.
Strong verdict. So for me, I agree with everything you said. I think it's hilarious, stand the test of time. It both has the nostalgia value of, I remember when I was 14 finding this funny, but also stuff that we probably didn't even get then that we get now. And now researching it for this podcast, I have a whole new appreciation about how hard it was to make it.
Definitely.
And it's kind of nice to see that something that you love so much wasn't easy to make. Is like this wasn't accidental. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but if you found out let's just say let's take a sports analogy. If there's a team that you like or a team that wins and you're like, oh, it's just a rich person who just bought a bunch of players. It's like, well, that's too easy. Like, the whole point is it's meant to be hard. You need like good strategy and good players and good management. And I think it's the same here. If it's just, oh, someone produced a script and they put some stars in it and it was easy to make, it's like, okay, well, that kind of takes away from the magic of it. Whereas when you find out how hard it was to do the puppeteering, they took them 2 years to perfect the script, the people didn't believe in them, the actors hated it, and all that sort of thing. It's just beautiful to see. So I'm putting it 44th overall for me.
Okay.
But out of my top 100, I don't have that many comedies, so it is the 5th comedy for me.
Yeah.
And there are some, I'll tell you them off screen after. I think there's some proper bangers that are going above it. But for me, that's still a very strong ranking.
Is it your favourite puppet film?
Iain, I think I will definitively say that yes, Team America World Police is mine and your favourite puppet film.
Suck it, Muppets.